Chapter 22:16. No pirate leader could tolerate what he had done to gain the trust of the second most powerful family. Well done. However, to Su Yu's surprise, Xiaoya smiled and praised him. Those who achieve great things don't bother with trifles. Sacrificing partial benefits in exchange for greater benefits is a successful pirate. She looked Su Yu up and down as if he was a treasure. I have never admired anyone in my life. You are the first. If she were Su Yu, she would never have done what she had just done. Her eyes were filled with sincere admiration. She smiled and extended her hand to Su Yu. Su Rushu, would you like to join the Xiaoya pirates? Su Yu was stunned. The situation had changed so quickly that even he could not take it. He had thought he was dead meat. Yet, not only did Xiaoya not do anything to him, she even took the initiative to recruit him. Su Yu pondered for a moment before cupping his fists. Thank you for your kindness, Leader Xiaoya. However, I have already joined the Sea Wolf Pirates. Without a legitimate reason, I cannot join another pirate group. Xiaoya did not take it seriously. That's hard to say. I can just ask the Sea Wolf Pirates for you. I don't believe you would dare to refuse me if I asked for you. Su Yu's lips were slightly bitter. If he stayed with the Sea Wolves Pirates, he could at least become a deputy leader. What kind of position could a pirate who joined Xiaoya get? Even the Sea Wolves sect master could recruit top talents like the Star Lady and the Stone Sword, let alone Xiaoya. He had even more experts under his command. It would be difficult for him to be put in an important position after joining. You can rest assured that you will not be mistreated if you join me. Xiaoya guaranteed. So you cannot believe it. Please allow me to return to the Sea Wolves Pirates first. Okay. Xiaoya did not force him and agreed immediately. She looked up at the sky and said, Pajuan Emperor is rushing over. It is not too late to use the Wanzong beast now. Su Yu nodded and brought Tamlang to the pavilion. With his other hand, he grabbed Shui Mengfu, whose face was deathly pale from despair. Killing two birds with one stone. Ha! The 7 unique civilizations are going to be in an uproar. Your name, Su Rushu, will resound throughout the ages. Xiaoya laughed and led them onto the Wanzong beast. Roar! Wanzongsho growled and left with the 3 of them. When the space was completely sealed, Emperor Pajun and the others finally appeared. He glanced at the celestial flower Dowlord, who was reduced to ashes, and then looked at the remaining aura of the Wanzongsho. Emperor, defeating armies' eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Sir Wuchen, my second peerless family will do everything we can to grind your bones and scatter your ashes, never to reincarnate. The unforgettable hatred pierced through the void like a sharp arrow and shook countless civilizations. At this moment, the living beings of countless civilizations all knew of a person named Su Rushu, a person who was sworn by the second most exceptional family to kill at all costs. Not long after, the headquarters of the Pirate Alliance. Standing outside the nest, Su Yu thought for a moment, then said, Pathmaster Xiaoya, please give me some time. I want to talk to Sea Wolf Pathmaster alone. Even if they wanted to join the Little Moon Pirates, they should at least see Sea Wolf Dao Master's attitude, right? If he knew that he had the ability to capture the greedy Wolf King alive, it would not be too late for him to leave. Okay, Xiaoya thought for a moment, then said, if he makes things difficult for you, just call me. Thank you. Su Yu cupped his fists, then turned around and walked into the area of the Sea Wolf Pirates. When he arrived at the main battleship of Sea Wolf Pathmaster, as soon as he boarded the battleship, he was greeted by many strange gazes. They were all sizing Su Yu up with a strange look in their eyes. Some were surprised, some were puzzled, and most of all, they were pitying him. Su Yu was slightly confused, so he went to the Great Hall, where Sea Wolf Pathmaster often met with people. When he arrived at the front of the hall, he saw that it was decorated with lanterns and streamers, and it was very lively. Beautiful maids were carrying exquisite wine and meat, going in and out with joyful expressions on their faces. Did something good happen? Su Yu was slightly surprised as he walked along the stairs to the door of the Great Hall. Looking inside, he saw that the Great Hall was filled with 18 banquet tables. Every table was occupied by the middle and high-level pirates of the Sea Wolf Pirates. Among them were the Star Lady, the Snow Swordsman, and the poisonous mathematician, whom Suyu was more familiar with. At the banquet table in the middle, the Sword in the Stone had a joyful look on his face as he toasted the Sea Wolf Pathmaster, who was sitting on the throne of the pirate leader. He said, "I will try my best to fulfill my duty as a deputy leader." The Sea Wolf Pathmaster had a happy smile on his face as he took out his wine cup and toasted the sword in the air. He said, "Good. I have high hopes for you." Suyu saw this, and a myriad of thoughts ran through his mind. The Pirate Alliance had an agreement that every group of pirates would only have one leader and two deputy leaders. There would never be one more deputy leader. Now that the Sword in the Stone was appointed as the new deputy leader, it meant that one of the deputy leaders had been replaced. The Star Lady was the person that the Sea Wolf Pathmaster thought most highly of, so the one who had been replaced couldn't be her. It could only be Suyu. Suyu stood at the main door, his long and lonely figure shrouding some guests. When they turned around and recognized Suyu's face, they couldn't help but be shocked. Many guests sensed that something was wrong, and when they looked over, they all had strange looks on their faces. Finally, the Sea Wolf Pathmaster was alarmed. When he looked at the door, he was dumbfounded. A month ago, the Sea Wolf Pathmaster's power attached to Suyu's body had been cut off. Based on this, he concluded that Suyu had failed and died. Therefore, not long after returning to the Pirate Alliance, a 3-day celebration banquet was held to congratulate the Sword in the Stone's promotion as the new deputy leader. Today was the last day. However, the Sea Wolf Pathmaster didn't expect that Suyu was still alive. Not only did he not die, but he also appeared at the celebration banquet. At the banquet, the guests looked at each other and secretly communicated with each other. This is so King embarrassing. However, Su Rushu should be the most embarrassed one. Even if he came back one day later, it would have been fine, depriving him of the deputy leader position in front of his own eyes. Nothing could be more embarrassing than this, right? I can't help but sympathize with Su Rushu, although he only has himself to blame. The Sword in the Stone also noticed Suyu. He was surprised and frowned deeply. "So you didn't die?" When Suyu saw everyone's expressions, his heart turned ice cold. It was probably because Suyu was frozen by the snow dream, flying rain with ice, that the Sea Wolf Pathmaster mistakenly thought that he was dead. However, that happened more than half a month ago. Moreover, it would take another 10 days for the news to be sent back. A few days after confirming Suyu's death, the Sea Wolf Pathmaster immediately held a celebration banquet for the Sword in the Stone. Suyu's heart turned cold bit by bit. He was fighting for the Sea Wolves pirates outside, fighting for them. But what were the Sea Wolves pirates doing? Knowing that he had just died, they couldn't wait to deprive him of the deputy leader position and hold a celebration banquet. This was the most despicable thing. At this moment, Suyu knew that the Sea Wolves pirates couldn't be left alive. Even if he stayed in such a ruthless place, he wouldn't be put in an important position. Moreover, he might perform too well and be feared by the Sea Wolf Pathmaster. As he said in the past, he shouldn't perform too well. Otherwise, he would arouse the suspicion of the Sea Wolf Pathmaster. Was there any need for him to stay in such a place? "Oh, you're back." The Sea Wolf Pathmaster was stunned for a moment. After thinking for a while, he asked calmly, "How was the mission?" Suyu hid the emotions in his eyes and said calmly, "Not perfect. Capturing the greedy Wolf King was a revenge on the second peerless family. But capturing the Snow Dream Flying Rain at the same time offended the sixth peerless family. Therefore, this mission couldn't be considered perfect. However, in the ears of the Sea Wolf Pathmaster and the others, they naturally understood it as a failure. There was no disappointment in the eyes of the Sea Wolf Pathmaster because he never had any expectations. "Well, it's good that you are back," the Sea Wolf Pathmaster said calmly. After a pause, he said, "Because they mistakenly thought you had died, and the Sea Wolf pirates couldn't live without a deputy leader, they appointed the Stone Sword as the new deputy leader. Now that you are back, give me the deputy leader's seal." The Sea Wolf Pathmaster said, "I won't mistreat you. You will be the Helm Master of the First Fleet." From his tone, it seemed that taking away the deputy leader's position and giving it to him was letting him off easy. Without saying a word, Suyu handed the skeleton-shaped deputy leader's seal to to the Sea Wolf Pathmaster. The Sea Wolf Pathmaster nodded and took out the seal of the First Fleet's Helmmaster. Then, he threw it to Su Yu and said, "Take it." It was as if he was giving alms. However, Su Yu didn't take it. Instead, he tilted his body slightly and said indifferently, "Dao Master Sea Wolf, you've misunderstood." Sea Wolf Dowlord looked at the clanking seal on the ground and was slightly displeased. "What did you call me?" As a member of the Sea Wolf's pirates, he should be addressed as leader and not as Sea Wolf Downmaster. Sea Wolf's Pathmaster. Su Yu repeated. "I handed over the deputy leader's seal, which means that I quit the Sea Wolf's pirates. The Sea Wolf's pirates are full of talents. I, Su, am just a mediocre person who is unable to serve the Sea Wolf pirates. I am ashamed, so I hereby announce that I will withdraw from the Sea Wolf's pirates." Sea Wolf Daylord's displeasure deepened when he heard that, and he thought to himself, "Are you trying to spite me? Why doesn't he take a look at himself first? If it weren't for the fear of outsiders gossiping about him, he wouldn't be fit to be the branch leader of the First Fleet with that little bit of cheating ability of his." With that in mind, Downmaster Sea Wolf's expression was calm as he said indifferently, "Since Deputy Leader Su has made up your mind, I won't hold you back." He felt that Su Yu would regret it sooner or later. If he left the Sea Wolf's pirates, who would be willing to take Su Yu in? Not to mention the position of branch leader of the First Fleet? No one, right? "Thank you, Downmaster Sea Wolf, for granting my wish." Su Yu had completely given up on the Sea Wolf's pirates. Then, he turned around and walked away in the afterglow of the setting sun in front of the pitiful eyes of the guests. "Wait!" The stone sword left the banquet and walked over with his hands clasped behind his back. "What's the matter?" Su Yu looked at him, but there was no sign of the stone sword in his eyes. He really didn't care about such a person. Chapter 22:17. Su Yu was like a drowning dog, so he could no longer challenge the position of the stone sword. The reason why he did this was that he wanted to quickly establish his prestige as the deputy leader by suppressing Su Yu. He wanted everyone to know that from now on, one of the two deputy leaders of the Sea Wolf's pirates would be the stone sword, not Su Rushu. The pity in everyone's eyes deepened. A fallen phoenix was no better than a chicken. A dignified deputy leader actually had to fall to the fate of kneeling in front of everyone. What a pity, what a pity. Su Yu did not speak, but looked at the Sea Wolf Pathmaster. He was sitting on the leader's throne, looking down at Su Yu, and said calmly, "Deputy Leader Shu's words are reasonable. It's just an etiquette. Su Rushu, just do as he said." Etiquette? If it were another occasion, it might be etiquette. But could it still be etiquette in this situation? Wasn't this an extreme form of humiliation? Moreover, when he was the deputy leader, did the stone sword ever kneel down in front of him? Looking at the biased Sea Wolf Pathmaster, Su Yu was calm. He had already seen through the Sea Wolf Pathmaster's character. So how could he have any expectations? Such an answer was not surprising at all. "Did you hear that? Kneel down." The stone sword's eyes were aggressive, and his tall figure was even more intimidating. Su Yu shook his head calmly and said, "Maybe your ears are not very good. Do you need me to repeat it again? Just now, I have quit the Sea Wolf's pirates. Now, I am neither your subordinate nor a member of the Sea Wolf's pirates. What reason do you have for me to kneel down to you?" The stone sword sneered. "As long as you haven't stepped out of the hall, you are still a member of the Sea Wolf's pirates." He had made up his mind that Su Yu had to kneel down today, no matter what. "Then I will leave," Su Yu said calmly as he turned around and walked out of the hall. "Guards, the members of the Sea Wolf's pirates are disrespecting the deputy leader. Take them down." The stone sword ordered aggressively. Immediately, 2 rows of pirates came from outside the hall. They did not care about Su Yu, the former deputy leader, at all. They pounced on him like tigers and wolves. Su Yu did not even look at them. He did not even stop and continued walking. However, a layer of extremely powerful sword chi appeared around his body, forming a circle and slashing all the pirates that pounced on him. The figures of the pirates were sent flying like sandbags, crashing in all directions. Many tables were smashed and overturned. In an instant, the rich aroma of wine and meat filled the hall. Seeing that Su Yu dared to fight back, Sword in the Stone's face was filled with hostility. He pulled out the stone sword on his back and said coldly, "You dared to defy the deputy leader and injure a law enforcer. They deserve to die the most." In any case, Suyu was already worthless, so the Sea Wolf Pathmaster wouldn't say a word if he killed him in front of everyone. As the sword slashed down, one of Suyu's feet had already stepped out of the palace. However, he suddenly withdrew his leg and stood back in the hall. He slowly turned around and stared coldly at the sword and the stone. He endured again and again, gave way again and again, retreated again and again. However, the sword and the stone did not show any signs of restraint. Suyu was not made of clay, and he had his own anger. Looking at the stone sword, Suyu said calmly, "I have never paid attention to an ant like you. Since you want to attract my attention, I will pay some attention to you." Suyu didn't seem to move at all. He just raised his hand slightly and easily caught the stone sword's sword that was slashing at him. No matter how sharp the sword was or how much power it carried, it was caught by Suyu single-handedly at this moment. On the contrary, the stone sword stopped abruptly because of the falling momentum of the stone sword. A great counterforce came from the hilt of the stone sword, which shook off the stone sword's hand. The stone sword that he had been relying on was snatched away by Suyu. "You, what kind of evil trick did you use?" The stone sword turned pale with fright. The stone sword was not an ordinary sword, but a doctrine artifact fairy embryo that he had refined with the heavenly stone bloodline for a long time. Its power was so strong that even the Pathmaster didn't dare to block it with his body. However, it was caught by Suyu in the air. How could this be possible? Suyu held the hilt of the sword with one hand and the blade with the other. Then, he broke it with both hands at the same time. Crack! The stone sword was broken into 2 pieces. "Ah, my stone sword!" The stone sword yelled in disbelief. However, while he was still yelling, his vision went black. Suyu was approaching him. The stone sword was extremely angry, and he roared as he charged at Suyu. He was a half-path master, whose body and soul were both taoified, and he was extremely powerful. In his anger, he exerted all his strength, regardless of anything else. Suyu's eyes were indifferent as he pointed a finger at the stone sword's palm. Crack! Crack! A horrifying scene appeared. The stone sword's arm was broken into pieces by Suyu's finger. In the end, his whole arm was peeled off, and half of his body was full of cracks. The eyes of the people present were filled with shock. They couldn't believe what they had seen. The stone sword's body, as a pathmaster, couldn't even block Suyu's finger. Plop! After suffering from the tremendous force, sword in the stone's body fell unsteadily to the ground, fear filling his eyes. Pow! Suyu stepped forward and stomped on his face, burying his head into the ground. Ah! The stone sword howled in pain. He struggled with his remaining arm, trying to get rid of Suyu's foot. However, he couldn't do anything to Suyu's foot. He was like a defenseless ant that was being stepped on by someone. Suyu looked at the stone sword's fearful expression, which was completely different from his previous arrogance, and said calmly, "You dare to be arrogant with such little ability?" He snorted softly and kicked the stone sword with the tip of his foot. The stone sword fell on the table in the middle of the room. With a crashing sound, the table was smashed into pieces. The stone sword was lying on the ground, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Suyu looked at his abdomen, which had a huge hole in it. Even if his injury was healed, it would leave irreversible sequelae. Suyu shook his sleeves and walked out of the room expressionlessly, ignoring the people who kept quiet out of fear. "Umph, you are courting death." The Sea Wolf Pathmaster's face was gloomy. He admitted that he had misjudged Suyu. Suyu was indeed extraordinarily powerful, but he had crippled the deputy leader he had personally promoted at the celebration banquet. Did Suyu think about his dignity? Swish! The Sea Wolf Pathmaster's attack was decisive and ruthless. "You injured my deputy leader, and you want to leave? You should ask me first." Suyu's eyes were full of killing intent. He turned around and turned into a wholly half-human, half-dragon. 2 dragon arms collided with the Sea Wolf Pathmaster. Thud! Thud! The Sea Wolf Pathmaster felt an earth-shattering force, which forced him to retreat. All the people present gasped in shock. Su Rushu was not at a disadvantage when she collided with the Sea Wolf Path Master. Instead, she forced the Sea Wolf Path Master to retreat. At this moment, the Sea Wolf Path Master was really shocked. He had thought that Suyu was just stronger than the stone sword. However, when they exchanged blows, he found that it was not the case at all. The strength of his body had surpassed that of the Sea Wolf Path Master. Among the 10 great pirates, Xie Xiaoye was probably the only one who could take a punch from him without batting an eyelid. The gloomy look on his face disappeared immediately and was replaced by delight. He said, "What happened to your strength?" His heart was thumping wildly, and he realized that he had unintentionally recruited a genius who defied the natural order. So you did not cheat in the martial power test that day. Instead, he reached 19,000 martial power points with his own strength. The Sea Wolf Pathmaster was ecstatic. He had recruited a strong man who was second only to the Sea Wolf Pathmaster. However, before he could finish his question, a boundless golden gust of wind attacked him. The Sea Wolf Pathmaster's pupils constricted, and a giant sea wolf appeared behind him to resist the gust of wind. However, the gust of wind was so powerful that it shattered the virtual image of the sea wolf. The Sea Wolf Pathmaster groaned, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. With an angry look on his face, he said in a low voice, "Xie Xiaoye, are you crazy? How could you attack me?" Swish! Beside Su Yu, a golden gust of wind stopped, and Xie Xiaoye's figure appeared. She checked whether Su Yu was injured and said, "I was wondering why you didn't come out after such a long time. It turns out you were bullied by the sea wolf." Su Yu said, "Thank you, Xiaoye Pathmaster, but I'm fine." "Okay, did you tell the sea wolf about the situation?" "No," Su Yu said calmly. "There is no need to tell him. I have quit the Sea Wolf Pirates." Xie Xiaoye's eyes lit up, and she said with a smile, a fine bird chooses a good tree to nest in. From now on, join my Xiaoye Pirates, and I will appoint you as the first deputy leader. Your position will be higher than the other deputy leaders." Hearing this, everyone was moved. Xie Xiaoye's pirates were the most elite among all the pirates. It was said that the 2 current deputy leaders were dragons among men, and their strength and potential were even greater than the Star Ladies. However, Xie Xiaoye was willing to remove one of the deputy leaders' positions and let Su Yu take it. How much trust did she have in Su Yu? The Sea Wolf Pathmaster was also surprised. Was it because Xie Xiaoye saw Su Yu's powerful strength? Regret welled up in his heart, and he moved his lips, trying to persuade Su Yu to stay. However, was it even possible? One was the strongest deputy leader of the pirates, and the other was the deputy leader of the weakest pirates. One of them had shown him kindness, and the other wanted to kill him. No matter what, it was impossible for Su Yu to come back, right? As a pirate leader, the Sea Wolf Pathmaster felt that he still had some dignity. If he lost Su Yu, then so be it. If he forced him to stay, wouldn't it be humiliating? "Let's go. I, Xie Xiaoye, promise you that I won't let you be wronged like you were in the Sea Wolf Pirates." Xie Xiaoye patted Su Yu's shoulder and promised him. Su Yu nodded and left with Xie Xiaoye. The Sea Wolf Pathmaster looked at the messy banquet and said, "Clean it up." Although he was slightly regretful that he had misjudged and lost Su Yu, he quickly regained his composure. Regarding Su Yu's matter, just let everyone know about it. "Don't tell anyone else," the Sea Wolf Pathmaster said. If word of it spread, the Sea Wolf Pathmaster's reputation would be somewhat damaged. However, even if he wanted to keep it a secret, he might not be able to. Several days later, a piece of news that was like a thunderclap shook the entire pirate alliance. The greedy Wolf King, the 2nd Peerless family's young master, and the 6th Peerless family's heir, Xuan Mengfiu, were kidnapped and brought back. The pirate alliance dreamed of kidnapping the heirs of the aristocratic families and making a name for themselves. Unfortunately, they never got what they wanted. Now, 2 of them were kidnapped at once. How could they not be shocked? The Sea Wolf Pathmaster was shocked when he heard the news. Who did it? Su Yu came into his mind, but he quickly rejected the idea. Even the Pathmaster might not be able to capture the greedy Wolf King, let alone Su Yu. The 3rd night was the first time he tried to break out, and he would gradually increase the amount of breakouts in the future. Chapter 22:18. The difficulty of catching the greedy Wolf King was well known. It should be Xiaoya herself, Sea Wolf Down Master thought to himself. Leader, it's the deputy leader of the Xiaoya pirates. The reporter looked hesitant. Sea Wolf Down Master couldn't help but be surprised. Deputy leader? From his point of view, Xiaoya herself wouldn't have been able to handle it, but the person who had done it was a vice leader? It was really hard to believe. Which deputy leader is it? Iron Hands or Wusu? Sea Wolf asked. Unlike the other pirates, Xiaoya's strength was not severely affected. Her two vice leaders were still there. However, Sea Wolf Down Master found it unbelievable. Xiaoya had clearly rejected the mission to capture the greedy Wolf King. Why did he secretly send the deputy leader to complete the mission? The reporter lowered his head, not daring to look at Sea Wolf Down Master's eyes. He whispered, Is it Deputy Chief Su? Surname Su? Sea Wolf Down Master's heart began to pound, and his eyes were filled with speculation and disbelief. How could he forget that a few days ago, Xiaoya announced in front of the Sea Wolves pirates that she was going to make Su Rushu the first vice leader? Tai Shou and Wu Su's original names were not Su. Was there a need to say who this deputy leader Su was? However, he did not want to believe it. He did not dare to believe that Su Yu had actually completed the mission that he had sent Su Yu to his death. Yes, it's Su Rushu. The reporter's words extinguished Sea Wolf Daelord's last bit of hope. It was really Su Rushu. Didn't he say that he didn't complete the mission perfectly? Sea Wolf Down Master muttered to himself as his mind went blank. Then he suddenly realized something and slumped back on the throne. Not only had Su Yu captured the greedy Wolf King, but he had also captured Xuemeng Feiyu. In a sense, this was not considered a perfect completion of the mission. Sea Wolf Down Master had mixed feelings when he thought of this. He had stripped away the position of the vice leader of a top genius who was able to kidnap the successors of two aristocratic families in one go. No, not only did he strip him of his position, but he also deliberately humiliated him and even personally taught him a lesson in the end. He chased such a person away and forced him into Xiaoya's camp. Moreover, all he had done in exchange for was a piece of trash who did not even have the power to retaliate against Su Yu. To be honest, the stone sword was very outstanding, but compared to Su Rushu, especially Su Yu who could capture the greedy Wolf King and the Snow Dream Rain at the same time, he was nothing. Could he even touch a single strand of Su Yu's hair? What did it mean to throw a watermelon and pick a sesame seed? Sea Wolf Daelord was a living reality. Leader, we have an important matter to report. At this time, the two deputy leaders and several branch leaders came to report. Sea Wolf Daelord returned to his senses and said dejectedly, Come in. The group of people looked a little anxious. Sea Wolf Down Master looked at everyone and felt an inexplicable pain in his heart when his gaze fell on the sword and the stone, who had recovered a little. It was as if a needle had pierced into his heart. Sea Wolf Daelord had the urge to slap himself when he saw him. What kind of eyes did I have to chase away a talent like Su Rushu for this kind of trash? Sword in the stone. After you recover from your injuries, go to a new star area and open up a new territory for the Sea Wolf pirates. This is a very difficult task, and only you can do it. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed slightly. They had finally come to this step. Opening up a new territory meant they had to become enemies with the local forces, and the people who opened it would suffer heavy casualties. Usually, less than 1 out of 10 people survived. Anyone who was sent to open up a new territory was basically a person who wasn't put in an important position or was a traitor. Because of the sword and the stone, a person like Su Yu was chased away. The last thing that Sea Wolf Down Master wanted to see now was the sword and the stone, right? The sword and the stone's body trembled, and his eyes were full of regret. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have done it in the first place. Wouldn't it have been better for him to be the first branch leader and be valued and cultivated by the leader? Now he had nothing. You came to report together. Did something important happen? Sea Wolf Down Master asked. The Star Lady said in a serious voice, Yes, we found traces of the second Peerless family's activities in our territory. Oh, Sea Wolf Down Master immediately became serious and said, "Tell me quickly." The second peerless family would never risk entering the territory of the Pirate Alliance. Today, we found that we have lost contact with several frigates protecting the main warship. No matter how we tried to contact the captains, we couldn't get a reply. Then, we sent people to contact them face to face. In the end, none of them came back, and we couldn't find any clues. Until Captain Poisonous Sutro went in person, he only sent half a message back. Hearing this strange situation, Sea Wolf Down Master knew that something had happened, and it wasn't a trivial matter. What message did he send back? The Star Lady said. He only said 3 words. Pajuan Emperor. Sea Wolf Down Master's pupils constricted violently. Did Pajuan Emperor come to the Pirate Alliance personally? Let's go. Follow me to take a look. Sea Wolf Down Master's heart was heavy as he led a group of powerhouses to the frigate that had lost contact with them. However, as soon as he appeared, an extremely terrifying aura engulfed the main warship. He saw Pajuan Emperor, Down Master Mayuan, and the other 3 Path Lords, as well as hundreds of half-step Path Lords, charging toward them in a frigate. Pajuan Emperor's eyes shone with a cold light as he jumped onto the main warship and attacked Sea Wolf Down Master without saying a word. Sea Wolf Down Master sucked in a breath of cold air and hurriedly used his Pathmaster's power to activate the various formations on the main warship. He shouted anxiously, "Inform the rest of the pirates." His heart pounded wildly as he used the power of the formations to resist Pajuan Emperor. However, how powerful was Pajuan Emperor? Could he resist him completely? He was defeated by Pajuan Emperor's palm strike after just one exchange of blows, causing him to vomit a mouthful of blood. "Where is Su Rushu? Where's my son?" Pajuan Emperor asked with bloodshot eyes, as if he wanted to eat someone alive. After Suyu escaped, Pajuan Emperor was extremely furious. He chose 3 Path Lords to fight their way into the Pirate Alliance's lair to rescue his son. Only by doing so could he redeem the reputation of the second peerless family. They used the Wanzong beast to find the vicinity. After lurking for a day, they secretly attacked. Finally, they approached the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance without alerting the rest of the pirates. Now, they suddenly launched a fatal attack. If everything went smoothly, they should be able to rescue the greedy Wolf King before the rest of the pirates reacted. At the mention of Su Rushu, Sea Wolf Down Master's heart was filled with bitterness, regret, and anger. Suyu had captured the heirs of the 2 families, and all the fame and benefits that came with it had belonged to Xie Xiaoya. However, the revenge of the second peerless family had all fallen on him. He didn't get any benefits, only to attract all the disadvantages. He clenched his teeth and said shyly, "Su Rushu has left the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance and joined the pirates that Xie Xiaoya is in." Hearing this, Pajuan Emperor looked at him and said coldly, "Do you think I'll believe you?" If Sea Wolf Down Master didn't treat such a dazzling genius like Su Rushu as a treasure, would he allow him to leave the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance? No one would believe him, right? Unless the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance was hopelessly stupid. Sea Wolf Down Master's heart was filled with bitterness. "Look, even the enemy doesn't believe that I'm that stupid. But the fact is, I really did. Hand over Su Rushu, or you will die without a burial place." With boundless anger, Pajuan Emperor attacked angrily. Every attack made Sea Wolf Down Master feel extremely uncomfortable. At the same time, the other 3 Down Masters were slaughtering and capturing captives. They were searching the captives' souls. After a short while, the 3 Down Masters stopped and came before Pajuan Emperor. They said, "Family Master, you got the wrong person." Pajuan Emperor said coldly, "Isn't Su Rushu the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance's deputy leader? Why did you get the wrong person?" Down Master Mayuan said, "A few days ago, Su Rushu was indeed the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance's deputy leader. However, a few days ago, Su Rushu was stripped of her position by Sea Wolf Down Master. At the same time, she helped the new deputy leader to bully him. Now, Su Rushu has been forced to leave the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance." Hearing this, Pajuan Emperor looked at Sea Wolf Down Master in disbelief. He couldn't understand what Sea Wolf Down Master was thinking. A person like Suyu might not be the only one in the world, but he was definitely one of a kind. Such a talent would be considered pretty good even in an 8-star civilization. In a 7-star civilization, he would definitely be the king of geniuses. Yet, he actually drove him away? Was Sea Wolf Dao Masterborn with a defect in his intelligence? Pujuan Emperor thought to himself. Feeling Pujuan Emperor and the 3-path masters looking at him, Sea Wolf Dao Master really wanted to find a hole in the ground to hide in. This matter had already become a humiliation and a black mark on him that he couldn't get rid of. However, because the truth had been revealed, Pujuan Emperor stopped his attack. His face was gloomy as he asked, "Where is Su Rushu now?" She has joined Xie Xiaoya's pirates and was appointed as the first deputy leader by her. What? Pujuan Emperor clenched his fists angrily. The battle in front of him must have attracted the attention of most of the pirates, and they were rushing over. How could they have a chance to attack Xie Xiaoya again? If they didn't leave now, they would be surrounded by the entire pirate alliance and be completely annihilated. Moreover, Xie Xiaoya's unfathomable abilities made it impossible to take Su Yu from her hands. It was already hopeless for them to take back the greedy Wolf King. Retreat. Pujuan Emperor made a prompt decision and led everyone away quickly. Before long, the pirates arrived at the Sea Wolves Pirate Alliance's territory. Looking at the destroyed corvettes, the battered battleships, and the many newly recruited pirates, the 9 great pirates were all surprised. Knowing that it was the doing of the second peerless family, everyone was surprised and had a strange look on their faces. The incident of Su Rushu being driven away had already spread like wildfire in the Pirate Alliance. Sea Wolf Dao Master had been blind to send a heaven ruler king like Su Rushu to Xie Xiaoya, which made him a laughingstock. What was even more ridiculous was that Sea Wolf Dao Master didn't get any benefits, but was instead given special treatment by the second peerless family. Sea Wolf Dao Master clenched his fists. He had never felt so vexed and humiliated in his life. Looking up, he suddenly saw Su Yu standing beside Xie Xiaoya with his hands clasped behind his back. He had a calm look on his face as he looked at the miserable situation calmly. He had planned to wait until 5, but he was delayed by something today, so he missed 4. As mentioned before, if one missed 5 updates, it would add up to 9 updates. Chapter 2219. Dao Master Sea Wolf's expression was extremely complicated when he saw that it had nothing to do with him. So you must be laughing at him in his heart now, right? After all, it wasn't common for a Dao Lord to make a joke out of himself, right? However, he didn't know that Suyu didn't want to laugh at such a person. He was glad that the Providence Dao Pearl had allowed him to meet Xie Xiaoya. Otherwise, Sea Wolf Dao Lord would not be able to protect him even if he managed to take back the Pirate Alliance. Strengthen the defenses, Xie Xiaoya said indifferently. At this moment, the second peerless clan must have fled far away. It was useless to chase after them. Since everyone is here, let's have a temporary meeting to discuss how to deal with the 2 hostages, said Xie Xiaoya. Soon, in the main hall of Sea Wolf Dao Lord's battleship, Su Yu, the greedy Wolf King, and Xuemeng Fiyu were among the 10 pirate chiefs. Theoretically speaking, this was a discussion meeting between the pirate chiefs. As the deputy chief, Su Yu had no right to participate in it. However, the 10 pirate leaders tacitly agreed not to object. Instead, most of them cast friendly gazes at him. For a person like Su Yu, even though he was Xie Xiaoya's rival, they still admired him. How do you think we should deal with these 2? Xie Xiaoya asked. The leaders exchanged glances. The Blue Phoenix pirate captain's charming eyes moved back and forth between the greedy Wolf King and Snow Dream Feiyu. She said with a smile that did not seem like a smile, "It's rare for us to capture the heirs of 2 great aristocratic families. Of course, we have to lock them up for a few more years so that our pirate alliance can earn enough reputation. Then we can extort resources from the 2 great aristocratic families." The other pirate leaders nodded in agreement. This time, the Pirate Alliance could be considered to have done something big. I think it's better to extort resources as soon as possible and exchange the hostages with them, Xie Xiaoya said indifferently. The Blue Phoenix leader pondered for a moment before asking, "Why do you say that?" Xiaoya seemed to be their leader now. Xiaoya hesitated for a moment before saying, "To tell you the truth, I recently captured someone's maid and learned some incredible news from her." "Whose maid?" Everyone was curious. For Xiaoya to say the word incredible, it was clear that this matter was no small matter. Xiaoyan. As soon as he said those words, Suyu clearly felt the atmosphere in the great hall tighten. Traces of fear and apprehension overflowed from the eyes of several pirate leaders. "Leader Xiaoya, you're extremely daring. I'm impressed, truly impressed." The leader of the Blue Phoenix tribe cupped her fists, her admiration for Xiaoya coming from the bottom of her heart. The other pirate leaders also looked at Xiaoya with admiration. Su was also slightly surprised. In the past few days, he had read a lot of information about the 7 absolute civilizations in Xiaoya's pirate ship. Among all the information, there was one name that appeared the most frequently. That was Xiaoyan. He was the head of the 7th peerless family. It was said that he was a descendant of the Sky Legacy Great Emperor. The number of times the other 6 family heads' names appeared was less than Xiaoyan's. All the information was describing Xiaoyan's incredible and legendary deeds. It was said that he was born to be an emperor. In just 200 years, he had broken through to become a Tao Lord. At the age of 300, he defeated his father and became the new head of the 7th peerless family. When he was 500 years old, when he was traveling, he passed by a 7-star civilization and was chased by that civilization. He single-handedly defeated all the Tao Lord experts of that civilization and took the most famous beauty of that civilization as his wife. Then, he calmed down and focused on cultivating. Billions of years had passed, and he had never shown his face again. Everything was managed by his father, Xia Donglai. Therefore, although the head of the 7th peerless family was Xia Donglai on the surface, everyone knew who it was in reality. Now that they heard that Xiaoya had dared to capture Xiaoyan's maid, how could they not be shocked by his audacity? The Blue Phoenix leader said, "So, what's the news about that maid?" Everyone was curious. As the saying went, the Prime Minister's doorstep was a 7th grade official. The maid also depended on whose maid it was. Xiaoyan's maid had a high status and was valued by the Tao Lords. Xiaoyan is about to come out of seclusion. All of a sudden, the whole place fell silent again. Even the sound of breathing was restrained. It was quiet. After a long while, Sea Wolf Path Master's expression froze. "You mean he's coming out?" Sea Wolf Path Master couldn't even complete his sentence, which showed the fear in his heart. The expressions of the other pirates also turned extremely ugly. If Xiaoyan really came out and attacked the Pirate Alliance, he could probably wipe out all the pirates by himself. "Yes, he's coming out of seclusion," Xiaoya said calmly. "However, he's not coming out for our Pirate Alliance. He has a premonition that something big will happen in the 7 absolute civilizations, so he came out in advance." Something big? Everyone was shocked again. How many things had happened in the 7 absolute civilizations in the past billions of years? Even when they were almost conquered by an extraterrestrial civilization, Xiaoyan had never shown himself. Now, he was actually coming out of seclusion for something. "What is it?" Xiaoya said deeply. "The Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode has appeared." Hearing that, all the pirate leaders were shocked. Those who were weak even stood up. Their eyes widened, their pupils constricted, and their breathing quickened as if they had fallen into great shock. "Is that true?" The Blue Phoenix pirate was shocked. Xiaoya nodded. "I've searched my soul repeatedly and confirmed it." Hearing that, all the pirate leaders became excited. The Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode. It's said that it's a supreme cave abode that contains the Heavenly Legacy Thearcha's entire life's accumulation. It's said that if one can obtain even a 10,000th of it, they can establish a powerful force that can contend against the 7 absolute clans. No, it's said that whoever obtains the Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode will obtain the world. Suyu's expression also changed. He had read many of the famous Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode among the many materials. Many of the myths and legends recorded in the entire 7 absolute clans were inextricably linked to the Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode. There were even rumors that the Heavenly Legacy the Arch had not died, but was hiding in the Heavenly Legacy cave abode to cultivate. He was only waiting for the day to reappear in the world and reclaim his former glory. And there were hundreds of different versions of the rumors about the treasures within. All in all, the Heavenly Legacy cave abode had long become a mythical existence. Unfortunately, the Heavenly Legacy cave abode had disappeared along with the Heavenly Legacy the Arch. For many years, the descendants had been searching for it. Unexpectedly, many years later, there was suddenly news that the Heavenly Legacy cave abode was about to appear. Xiaxia said. It said that Xia Yin is one of the descendants who inherited the bloodline of the Heavenly Legacy, the Arch the most. He used his powerful bloodline to sense that the Heavenly Legacy cave abode was being controlled by a mysterious force and was about to appear. That's why Xia Yin appeared. Everyone was already excited. But when and where the Heavenly Legacy cave abode will appear is still unknown. Even Xia Yin is not very sure. He only said that it will appear in the next few years. Hearing this, everyone finally understood why Xia had suggested returning the 2 hostages as soon as possible. Her main goal was to extort a large amount of resources before the Heavenly Legacy cave abode appeared, quickly replenishing the strength she had lost in the previous encirclement. The Blue Phoenix leader said, "All right, Leader Xia will make the arrangements for the return of the hostages. After all, if the hostages were returned, they would not get much of the resources they extorted. It was better to let Xia worry about herself. I have already made arrangements," Xia said. Her true intention was not to ask the other 9 pirates for instructions on how to deal with the 2 hostages. Instead, she was taking the opportunity to tell them about the news of the Heavenly Legacy cave abode. On the way back to the Xia pirates, Suyu thought for a moment, then said, "I was wrong. I let go of a very important person like Leader Xia." He had let go of all the hostages that Xia had captured. Among them was a gentle and tranquil young lady, who was very strange. Not only did the white-robed sword god find her familiar, but even Flower Lady Chu-chan found her familiar. She said she had seen her somewhere before, but could not remember where. Even the Pajuan Emperor had cast a puzzled look at her. Now that he thought about it, the ordinary young lady who had left such an impression on so many people was most likely the maid of Xia Yan. No matter, I have already gotten the information. I will release him sooner or later, Xia said calmly, walking in front. She did not blame Suyu for this. She looked at the Greedy Wolf King and Xuemeng Feiyu and said, "I'll exchange the Greedy Wolf King with you within a month, while Xuemeng Feiyu will need a year. During this year, she'll be your maidservant." The Greedy Wolf King looked at Xuemeng Feiyu with a pleased expression. As expected, a beautiful woman like Xuemeng Feiyu would not have a good ending in the hands of the pirates. It was inevitable that she would be defiled. Suyu frowned slightly, saying, "Leader, I want to take the opportunity to train more. I am afraid I will not have the time to look after this hostage." Xia turned her head and said with a faint smile, "No regrets." Ever since the news that Xuemeng Feiyu had fallen into her hands had spread, no less than 6 pirate leaders had greeted her, hoping to transfer Xuemeng Feiyu to them. Even a pathmaster with extraordinary willpower would not be able to resist such a beautiful woman whose name had shaken the 7 unique civilizations. Suyu's flat rejection had surprised Xia. "No regrets," Suyu said calmly. He had seen too many beautiful women, and he already wanted to talk to them face to face. Moreover, he had personally witnessed how heartless Xuemeng Feiyu was. It was difficult for Suyu to be interested in such a woman, who had a golden appearance, but was actually rotten inside. "All the more reason for me to hand her over to you." Xia smiled calmly. With a point of her finger, a speck of light entered the space between Xuemeng Feiyu's brows. Xuemeng Feiyu felt a wave of pain. She held her forehead, her eyes filled with bewilderment. "This is my evil moon realm. Once it is activated, those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will die. Even the thought of defying me will cause you unbearable pain," Xia said calmly. After that, she flicked her finger again, and a speck of light entered the space between Suyu's brows. "From now on, You have to obey him. You can try to defy him, Xiaoya said. Suyu was extremely helpless. He did not want it, but he insisted on giving it to him. Xuemeng Feiyu bit her lips, her heart bleeding. Chapter 22:20. When she thought up to here, Xuemeng Feiyu's heart was filled with humiliation, and she felt extremely disgruntled. However, just as she was about to give up, she suddenly felt a sharp pain in the depths of her mind. Xuemeng Feiyu grabbed her head and screamed. Her body was trembling in pain, and her beautiful face was filled with pain. It was only after a long while that the pain subsided, and her pretty face was pale. Seeing her like this, Greedy Wolf King couldn't help but laugh out loud. Bitch, you're finished. Ha ha ha. Xuemeng Feiyu lowered her head and did not dare to think about anything else. She was afraid that she would be tortured again. This is your first gift for joining my Xiaoya pirates. Xiaoya smiled faintly. Next, I have another gift for you. Suyu felt bitter in his heart. It was difficult for him to enjoy Xiaoya's gift. Don't refuse, it's about your injuries. Hearing this, Suyu was slightly startled. Could it be? I'll give you a heaven's cleansing dust, Xiaoya said. Suyu's heart palpitated. What did Suyu lack the most? Without a doubt, it was the clear sky dust. He didn't get it from a number one peerless family, but he didn't expect to get it from Xiaoya. However, this heaven's pure dust is currently suppressing some kind of evil seal, and the seal is gradually being undone. Once it is undone, the heaven's pure dust will lose its use, so I will hand it over to you. Suyu said excitedly. Thank you, leader. It's my duty, Xiaoya said. Come, today I will officially confer you the position of vice leader. Although Xiaoya had already appointed him as the new deputy leader, it was just a formality. He had yet to go through a formal process. They returned to the main ship of the Xiaoya pirates. In a guest hall, the core members of the Xiaoya pirates were gathered. 2 deputy leaders, several branch leaders, and a few unidentified elders. Everyone, this is your trusted deputy leader. I don't think I need to tell you more about his deeds. Xiaoya sat on the throne and introduced Suyu to everyone with a smile. A round of applause immediately rang out in the hall. Suyu noticed that a few of them had not moved at all. One was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was one of the deputy leaders, Wu Su. The person Suyu wanted to replace was this person. On the other hand, Wu Su would be stripped of his position as the deputy leader and given other arrangements. It would be weird if he was happy at this moment. As for the other elderly men, Suyu was slightly surprised by them. He had heard that Xiaoya had a group of special subordinates while he was with the Xiaoya pirates. They were not very strong, but they were very old. For many years, Xiaoya had relied on them to do some very mysterious things. Xiaoya was also very polite and respectful to them. Their status was not inferior to the deputy chief. Now, I officially appoint Suyu as the new deputy captain. He will be in charge of the internal missions of the Xiaoya pirates. The overall mission of the Xiaoya pirates was divided into external and internal affairs. Externally, they would plunder, and internally, they would manage the daily affairs of the entire pirate alliance. In terms of importance, the former was obviously more important. However, even though Xiaoya trusted Suyu's intelligence, he had to get used to being a Xiaoya pirate before he could take on more important missions. Therefore, he decided to let Suyu start with the internal affairs. However, as soon as he finished speaking, one of the elders, who had sparse hair and only one blue eye, calmly said, Chief, I don't object to you recruiting outstanding talents, but isn't it too rash to choose a young man who has no experience and is completely unfamiliar with the Xiaoya pirates to be in charge of the internal affairs? Xiaoya could ignore the objections of others. However, he had to take their objections seriously. Xiaoya said, Elders 1, you may not know this, but from my understanding of Su Rushu, he is extremely intelligent. Give him some time, and he will be able to easily take charge of the internal affairs. The one-eyed elder nodded. Chief, we have watched you build the Xiaoya pirates step by step. You have only reached where you are today after many years of training. I hope you will not forget your original intentions and act cautiously. Otherwise, all these years of hard work will go to waste. They turned a deaf ear to Xiaoya's words. Yes, all these years, the few of us elders would have worked hard to build such a great foundation for you. Please reconsider, Chief. Please reconsider, Chief. The four so-called elders were all asked to resign, asking Xiaoya to give up on accepting her fate. Xiaoya's expression was a little ugly. She had already promised that she would not let Suyu suffer any grievances from the Seawolf pirates. But now, biting her teeth, Xiaoya stood her ground and said, Elders One, there is no need to say anything more. I have made up my mind. Wu Su, I will appoint you as the master of the 3 fleets, in charge of the 3 ships. Wu Su pursed his lips, standing up with a heavy heart. He stepped forward and handed over the deputy chief's seal. I will obey the chief's orders. Xiaoya nodded and passed the seal to Suyu. She said, Congratulations, Deputy Leader Su. Thank you for your guidance, Chief. I will do my best to serve the chief. Sigh. The one-eyed elder one suddenly let out a heavy sigh. He bit his old head and said sorrowfully, Prosperity leads to decline. Prosperity leads to decline. I have personally watched the Xiaoya pirates develop to this stage, but I have also personally watched them decline. How sad. The other elder one stood up, shaking his sleeves. He looked around, his eyes filled with disappointment. Today is the day the calamity begins. The Xiaoya pirates are destined to decline. The other 2 elders also let out long sighs. It was as if the Xiaoya pirates were about to be annihilated after accepting their fate to Suyu. Xiaoya creased her brows. These 4 old things felt that she had not given them face, so they were making a fuss over nothing. In the entire pirate alliance, only the 4 of them dared to treat her this way. But Xiaoya was very helpless. She could not leave these 4 people. Without them, some things cannot be accomplished. Also, I have another announcement, Xiaoya said. I have already promised to give the heaven's pure dust to Deputy Chief Su to heal your body. No, but just as Xiaoya said this, the one-eyed elder one objected. The heaven's pure dust uses are too amazing for words. We might even encounter a seal contaminated with evil energy in the future. How can we let go to waste? He said forcefully. Displeased, Xiaoya said indifferently. Old one, please don't be unreasonable. We accidentally triggered the evil aura in that seal. It's almost impossible for us to encounter a seal with such powerful evil aura in the future. Furthermore, if we give the heaven's pure dust to Deputy Chief Su, he will be able to recover his abilities. How can you say it is a waste? The one-eyed elder one's expression was tense. In this aspect, we have more say than the chief, right? Yes. Please do not interfere with us. Otherwise, if we really encounter a seal contaminated with evil energy one day, don't blame us for being helpless. From their tone, it was as if the Xiaoya pirates would immediately collapse without them. Xiaoya's eyes narrowed. As they had relied on them for a long time, the 4 elders had developed a habit of being arrogant. They had talked back to her in public more than once or twice. It was as if they did not regard her as a threat. To be honest, if not for the fact that she could not find someone to replace them, she would have chased all of them away long ago. My words will not change, Xiaoya said forcefully. The 4 of you, quickly undo that seal. After using it, the heaven's pure dust will belong to Deputy Chief Su. There are no objections. The one-eyed elder would have been humiliated twice by Xiaoya in public. He felt humiliated. He rose with a wave of his sleeves. Apologies, I have not been feeling well recently. I am afraid I have no time to study the seal. Please forgive me, Chief. After saying this, he did not wait for Xiaoya to speak. Leaving with his hands behind his back with a gloomy expression, the other 3 elders stood up in unison. The 4 of us elders have our own tasks. We cannot afford to lose even one of us. Hence, we might not be able to undo the seal during this period of time. The 3 elders left one after another. Xiaoya's pretty eyes were filled with coldness. These 4 old things were simply going too far. She had suppressed her anger for a long time. She said calmly, Today's matter ends here. Everyone, please return. The rest of the people left one after another. Only Suyu remained. He said to Xiaoya apologetically, I have made things difficult for the chief. He had not expected the four old things to have such tempers. Xiaoya sighed as exhaustion flashed across her elegant and beautiful face. It's not your fault. It's not the first time they've talked back to me. Even without the heavens pure dust incident, they would have caused trouble sooner or later because other matters did not satisfy them. So you thought for a moment, Chief, is the evil energy in the seal bothering you? Although my abilities are average, I have some methods to restrain the evil energy. I might be able to help you. He had the boundless karmic flames and an evil dragon. Dispelling the evil energy should not be a problem. Xiaoya smiled in relief. Thank you, but the problem is not the evil energy. It is how to undo the seal. After thinking for a moment, Xiaoya said, forget it. You are already the deputy chief. There are some things you have a right to know. The reason why the Xiaoya pirates have developed so quickly is because many years ago, we once robbed a strange mountain. There were many seals formed by special words on the mountain. To undo the seals, we must first translate the words. I have searched for many years before I found 4 experts like Elder who were proficient in many words. I relied on them to undo the seals and obtain many treasures from the mountain. For example, the teacup you took was one of them. Suyu felt awkward at the mention of the teacup. It felt like he had been caught red-handed by the owner of the house for stealing something. However, Suyu was most concerned about something else. He said in surprise, words. Yes, they are very strange words. I have flipped through the ancient books of many races, but there was no corresponding words. Those 4 elder also relied on various attempts to decipher the words one by one. Xiaoya looked at Suyu with a strange expression and asked, do you have any ideas? Suyu stroked his chin and pondered for a moment before saying, I don't have any ideas, but unfortunately, I have some attainments in writing. Chapter 22-21. Really? Xiaoya was a little surprised. When it came to writing, the higher the race, the more secretive they were about it. Hence, the fluidity of writing was very low. Usually, only those who had traveled very far away and were extremely experienced would have some understanding of the writing of other races. The 4 elders had been transported to an 8-star civilization because of an unexpected space ripple. They had spent their entire lives there before coming back. They had only learned some of the foreign languages after coming into contact with many foreign races in the 8-star civilization. Suyu was so young. It was not easy for him to spend the time to cultivate to this level. How could he still have the heart to travel the world? Xiaoya did not really believe it. Naturally, Suyu said. Xiaoya thought for a moment, then said, all right, I'll test you on the spot. She waved her slender fingers in the air and drew out 10 very rare words. It would have been difficult for a normal person to guess 1 or 2. But to Suyu, these 10 words were quite simple. Translate these 10 words into the corresponding common language, Xiaoya said. Suyu blurted out, Lin Xiao Zhu Tianxin Hun Fewan Tian Chong. Xiaoya opened her mouth in shock, her eyes filled with shock. You actually guessed 5 of them correctly? Unbelievable. You really have some attainments in the language. 5? Suyu froze for a moment. The correct one should be Lin, Xiao, Zhu Fil Sin Hun, Fewan Tian Chong. Suyu secretly shook his head. Wrong. The 4 elders' attainments were very limited, and they had translated 5 of the words incorrectly. But he did not want to have anything to do with the 4 old men who were taking advantage of their seniority. Hence, even though he knew they had made mistakes, he could not be bothered to correct them. Otherwise, if they found out, they would be unreasonable and argue with Suyu again. No, they would scold him. With their personalities, they would not allow anyone to question them. Xiaoya's eyes shone, unable to hide her surprise. I really picked up a treasure. Not only was he powerful and intelligent, but he also had a wide range of knowledge, even having some attainments in the foreign languages. Although he had only answered 5 correctly, far less than the 4 elders, it was not easy for him to do so at his age. Leader, I want to take a look at the seal you mentioned. Maybe I can be of help. Xiaoya nodded in agreement and took out a key in the shape of a small mountain. Take it, but don't act rashly. That seal is extremely powerful. If you're not careful, you might be injured. Yes. Soon, Suyu arrived in front of the strange mountain. The mountain was hundreds of meters tall, and its entire body was covered in mottled scars left behind by battles. A feeling of vicissitudes of life assaulted his face. This mountain had existed for a very long time. Suyu activated Xiao Dai's talent. As expected, he could vaguely see several masses of dark green and even light blue air masses hidden in the mountains. This meant that there were many powerful and extraordinary treasures in this mountain. There was even a deep blue swamp hidden in the depths, flickering. Dark blue, it should be the highest grade treasure he had seen so far. There are many treasures in the mountain. Suyu was secretly surprised. The mysterious sand he had obtained previously was just one of them. At the foot of the mountain, there was a door that could be opened with a key. He discovered that there were dozens of man-made stairs leading to different parts of the mountain. On one of the roads, there was a barrier set up by someone, which was intended to prohibit passage. This should be the place where the evil energy seal was located. He walked along the road to the end, and, as expected, he came in front of a stone wall. Colorful seals rapidly flashed on the stone walls. Balls of evil energy that could make one's heart jump were flying back and forth inside the seals. This was because there was a pure and holy sky clean dust at the top of the seal. Otherwise, the evil energy would be even more rampant. No wonder the sky clean dust was used to suppress it. So you could easily discover through his transparent eye that there was still a lot of evil energy hidden in the seal. The amount of evil energy stored here was about 10 times that of the wandering evil energy. One could imagine how powerful the evil energy was before this. Even an ordinary pathmaster would find it difficult to approach it. After pondering for a while, Suyu transmitted a message to the evil dragon in the cavern world. Do you need evil energy for your cultivation? The evil dragon, who was in a deep sleep, suddenly woke up and asked in surprise, "Of course. Why do you ask?" Suyu did not say anything else. He released the evil dragon from the cavern world and said, "When I break the seal, you can absorb as much of this evil energy as you can." The evil dragon was stunned, and he looked at the evil energy flowing in the seal. As an evil dragon, he was far more sensitive to evil energy than ordinary people. He could even see the huge amount of evil energy that had yet to appear in the seal. He cried out in surprise, "So much evil energy!" His face was filled with ecstasy. And it's the purest, due disaster, evil energy. It seemed like the evil energy was indeed very useful to him. "Thank you, my lord. Thank you." The evil dragon was extremely grateful. Suyu nodded, then silently observed the seal on it. He saw words of different sizes appearing on the seal. Each word belonged to a different race. Most of them are the words of the 8th-rated races, and one of them is from the 9th-rated races. Is it really so difficult to break it? Suyu muttered softly. Xiaoya said that it had taken the 4 great when elders hundreds of years just to break half of the words on the seal. Suyu had thought that it would be difficult, but it seemed like it was too easy. Walking forward, Suyu copied all of the words and translated them into common words one by one. It would take 1 or 2 days to translate all of the nearly 10,000 words. While he was translating in the Wind Palace, it was the place where the 4 great when elders lived and worked. The 4 of them were drinking and chatting. It was obvious that they did not look happy, especially the one-eyed when elder, whose face was so gloomy that it looked like it was about to drip water. If possible, he would have strangled Suyu to death. The leader is becoming more and more disrespectful to us, one of the Wind Elders said angrily. She didn't think about it. All these years, without our help to break the seal on that mountain, how could she have obtained so many treasures and developed the Xiaoya pirates to where they are today? Now, for the sake of a young boy of unknown origin, she has thrown the harsh advice of the 4 great Wind Elders to the back of her head. This is outrageous. This is outrageous. The 4 Wind Elders spoke one after another, as if without them, the Xiaoya pirates would not be where they were today. Now, the 4 of us will rest. I want to see who will continue digging without us, and how long the Xiaoya pirates can develop. Only the one-eyed Wind Elder had a gloomy expression. The leader will yield sooner or later. It is only a matter of time. But that Suyu humph, just wait and see. Once he understands how important we are to the Xiaoya pirates, he will come and apologize within 3 days. The one-eyed when elder said coldly, but it is useless even if he kneels and apologizes, unless he immediately scram from the Xiaoya pirates. They had previously said that it was for the development of the Xiaoya pirates, but now they refused to continue digging for their own selfish reasons, disregarding the overall interests of the Xiaoya pirates. Their words formed a stark contrast. At the end of the day, they were just angry that Xiaoya did not listen to them. Hence, they did not give in. Right? I heard that the Lord will come in a few days. When that time comes, the leader will yield even more, one of the One Elders said. The one-eyed One Elder's eyes flashed. He said in surprise, "You mean that, Lord?" The latter chuckled. Of course. The one-eyed One Elder was overjoyed. Haha, even the heavens are helping us. When the time comes, the 4 of us will tell the Lord about what the leader has done all these years. Let's see what the leader has to say. In the mountain, after 2 days of effort, Suyu had successfully translated all of the words into common words. But to undo the seal, just translating them was not enough. He still needed nearly 10,000 words to be rearranged into a spell. Only by relying on the spell could he undo the seal. This was another costly project. Suyu used the speed boost. Under the state of 500 times time, he rearranged the 10,000 words according to the order on the seal. Finally, a day later, he finally managed to arrange the words into a complete spell. Activating the spell, the seal shook violently. Then, starting from the middle, it began to dissipate. At the same time, a shocking evil energy leaked out from within. The evil dragon saw the opportunity and charged forward. The dragon's scales on its body opened up like a mouth, continuously swallowing the evil energy within. In just an hour, the evil dragons had completely absorbed all of the demonic chi hidden within it, including the demonic chi hidden within. The dragon's body had undergone a huge change. Its already black scales became even darker, and its ferocious head became even more ferocious. Its body seemed to be burning with a layer of black flames, which kept tumbling. It was a terrifying sight. This is great. I can finally refine the evil King Pearl that I've been dreaming of. The evil dragon laughed heartily. It was extremely pleased. The evil King Pearl? It should be something that was only useful to the evil dragon. However, this was the evil dragon's secret. Suyu did not want to delve into it, so he sent it back to the cavern world. He looked at the exposed stone wall in front of him. A fierce fighting spirit emanated from the stone wall. Using his transparent eyes, he saw 2 corpses in their battle stances. One of the corpses was filled with evil energy. The other was holding a decent doctrine artifact fairy embryo. Its grade was almost the same as the sand that Suyu had obtained before. What kind of mountain is this? Suyu was secretly surprised. He looked around and found that similar scenes were common in the mountains. They seemed to be in the middle of a war. Then, for some unknown reason, they all suddenly died. Their corpses did not even have time to fall before they were all sealed in the mountain and turned into fossils. Although he was surprised, Suyu did not want to explore this mountain. Since this mountain was Xiaoya's secret, she certainly did not want outsiders to study it too deeply. Although she trusted him, it was better to stay away from taboos that should not be violated. Chapter 22:22. He grabbed the sky pure dust embedded in the stone wall and took it away. As soon as Zhang Xian held it in his hand, he felt a wave of holiness wash over him, and his injuries were visibly recovering. The heaven's pure dust is really magical. Suyu was secretly delighted. He only needed to use the heaven's pure dust to recuperate for a while, and his injuries would be completely healed. With the clean heaven dust in his hand, Suyu immediately returned to the deputy leader's mansion that belonged to him. There was an excellent cultivation room in the mansion, and one didn't have to worry about people or aura leaking out while cultivating inside. In the training room, Suyu immediately placed the heaven-pure dust in his mouth. All of a sudden, a boiling warm current flowed out of the sky pure dust and flowed towards Suyu's limbs and bones. When Xiao Chun looked within himself, he could see a dazzling snow-white chi circulating within his body, filling it up. All of a sudden, Su Yu's exhausted body felt unusually warm and comfortable. It was like a person who had been ill for a long time, finally regaining health. Su Yu couldn't help but let out a soft moan. As time passed, the feeling of weakness in Xiao Chen's body gradually faded. His exhausted body slowly recovered. A day later, Su Yu stood up. He only felt that his entire body was filled with great power. From now on, he wouldn't have to worry about running out of Daelord strength when he fought with others. All this hard work was worth it. How many risks had Su Yu taken in order to obtain this pure sky dust? In the end, he succeeded. Now, I just need to find out the whereabouts of the sinful lady palace from the ancient well of the number 1 peerless family, Su Yu muttered. However, he still did not know why the golden-eyed Langjun wanted Su Yu to help them as a spy. With golden-eyed Langjun's shrewdness, his ambition might be rather great. Clang, right at this moment, the door to the mansion was kicked open. Immediately after that, the servants in the mansion began to cry out in panic and fear. Su Yu creased his brows. Who would dare barge into the deputy leader's mansion? When Xiao Chun left the secret room to take a look, he saw 4 old fellows standing in the middle of the courtyard with their noses facing the sky, looking extremely condescending. Su Yu was disgusted. He did not have a good impression of these 4 people. His abilities were mediocre, but he took advantage of his seniority and liked to point fingers at others. It was hard for anyone to have a good impression of him. And now, he had barged into his mansion. Did they think he was a pushover? It turned out that even though 3 days had passed, Su Yu hadn't gone to Caudron and apologized as they had expected. This made the one-eyed elder one feel very embarrassed, so he took the initiative to visit. Su Yu clasped his hands behind his back and asked calmly, "Since the 4 of you have come to visit, do you have anything to teach me?" The 4 elder one looked over. The one-eyed elder one had a cold expression on his face as he lectured. "How can you be so rude? How should I address you?" They had kicked down the door of Su Yu's mansion without saying a word. They had the attitude of looking for trouble, yet they still expected Su Yu to be polite. Seriously, they take themselves too seriously. "Oh, you 4 old things. Why are you looking for me?" Su Yu added another form of address. Being called an old thing, the 4 Wen elders immediately blew their beards and glared at him. As a pirate in Xiaoya, which pirate would not be respectful to the 4 of them? Only Su Yu dared to address them in such a manner in front of them. It was obvious that he did not take the 4 of them seriously. Before they had come here, they had assumed that Su Yu would feel guilty or at least be polite. But who knew? The one-eyed elder one was furious. He fiercely struck the ground with his walking stick, angrily scolding, "Young man, the 4 of us came here with good intentions to teach you a lesson, but you dare to humiliate us like this." Su Yu shook his head. He did not want to argue with them pointlessly. Teach him? Teach what? Was it martial arts? Or was it the literary skills that they were so proud of? Or were they here to teach him how to be a person? In reality, they were here to teach him a lesson, not to teach him. But it was a pity that Su Yu did not show his weak side as they had hoped. "The 4 of you will probably need to study for a long time to teach me," Su Yu said honestly. The only thing that they were worth teaching was their literary skills. But their literary skills could not even compare to the tip of the iceberg. How could they have the right to teach Su Yu? What a joke. "Young man, don't think that you can be arrogant just because you accidentally captured the greedy wolf king." The one-eyed elder one said angrily, "When we were roaming the world, you were not even born." He shook his sleeves, taking out a written contract and tossing it to Su Yu. "If you want to live in harmony with the 4 of us, you will have to abide by the following conditions. Otherwise, humph." Su Yu swept his gaze across the contract, stopping it in its tracks. There were 3 conditions on it. First, he had to report internal affairs to the 4 elders one. Second, he had to prioritize the tasks given to him by the 4 elders one. Third, he had to listen to all of their orders. So you felt like laughing after reading it. Even the leader, Xie Xiaoya, would not dare set up such a contract for her deputy leader. Rather than calling it a contract, it was more like a slave contract, an agreement to make Su Yu their slave. "Have you finished reading it? Sign it after reading it." The 4 elders one glared at him. They believed in Su Yu's choice. If he insisted on going against the 4 elders one, Suyu would not be able to do anything in the Xiaoya pirates, especially internal affairs. Many of the people there were already subordinates of the four elders one. Without their permission, Suyu, as the deputy leader, might not be able to command them. Suyu did not say a word, crushing the entire contract and tossing it back. Large pieces of paper flew into the air, covering their white hair. The four elders one froze, unable to restrain their anger. The one-eyed elder one fiercely tapped his crutch, angrily saying, "You will regret this. Leave." In their eyes, Suyu was just a hot-blooded brat who did not know his limits. Soon, he would realize that without the four of them, he could not do anything on the Xiaoya pirates. "Leave? Did I allow you to leave?" But just as they turned, Suyu's cold voice came from behind them. The one-eyed elder one turned his head, his eyes filled with anger. "Why, Deputy Leader Su, do you want us to stay?" He was extremely furious. "I wouldn't go so far as to make you stay. My mansion cannot accommodate four disrespectful old things like you." Suyu calmly said, "I just want you to leave the way you came." The one-eyed elder one had yet to react when Suyu suddenly appeared. The four elders only had the cultivation bases of 5-crown martial artists. They could not even dodge in time. The one-eyed elder one was the first to be slapped to the ground by Suyu, followed by the other 3 elders. You dare to attack us?" The one-eyed elder one's face was burning hot. He said in disbelief. Being on the Xiaoya pirates, the 4 of them were supreme existences. Even the leader did not dare attack them. A mere deputy leader actually dared to attack them? Attack? "No, I'm only asking you to get out." Suyu calmly said, "Didn't you come in by kicking the door open? I will kick you out." After which, 4 consecutive kicks sent all of them flying. 4 pathetic cries could be heard as the 4 of them flew through the air, landing outside the mansion one after another, letting out cries of pain. "From today onwards, you are not allowed to take even half a step into my mansion. If not, the next time I will not just ask you to get out." Suyu calmly said. He hated these 4 old things to the core. The servants in the mansion looked at Suyu as if they were looking at a monster. It was hard to imagine that among the Xiaoya pirates, there would be someone who dared to publicly beat up the 4 elders. Could it be that he was not afraid of death? When the 4 elders were enraged, no one in the Xiaoya pirates dared to do anything. Even Xiaoya had no choice but to ignore them. Their experience told them that Suyu was in deep trouble. The 4 elders were about to explode in anger at being treated this way. Preposterous! Preposterous! The one-eyed elder one was so angry that his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, the cane in his hand tapping the ground crazily. Let's go ask the leader what she chose." However, Xiaoya, who had received the news first, went into seclusion. This was to avoid the 4 elders. She had a headache. Sigh, Surushu has poked a hornet's nest. These 4 old fellows are going to cause trouble for a few more days. Surushu might be in some trouble. Actually, Suyu's trouble was not small. The second peerless family. When the defeated Pajuan emperor returned to the second peerless family's mansion, he was surprised to see an inconspicuous horse parked outside the mansion. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary horse. However, as a pathmaster and the master of the second peerless family, the Pajuan emperor's eyesight was extraordinary. He immediately recognized that the horse was extraordinary. There were 3 tufts of silver-white hair on its back. Each of its 4 hooves was covered with a golden horseshoe. The horse's eyes were filled with human-like wisdom and calmness. Stepping on the moon with silver hair, leaving gold in the air, the Pajuan emperor muttered the popular legend of the 7 unique civilizations, his heart thumping. This is the gold and silver horse. The gold and silver horse was said to be the offspring of an accidental union between a Wanzong beast and a divine horse of the highest grade. Many families had thought of letting the Wanzong beast mate with other species to give birth to a new species that had the ability to travel through space. However, all of them had failed. For some unknown reason, the new species that were born were either innately dead or died within a few days. The longest record was living for half a month before dying mysteriously. Only the gold and silver horse was a wild horse that was born by accident. When it was discovered, it was traveling through the void. A few Dao lords had to use many methods before they were able to capture him. It was rumored that this horse had the same ability as the Wanzhong beast. It could travel through space at will without any restrictions. However, what really moved the Pejuan Emperor was not the horse, but the horse's owner. The horse was so fierce that no one could ride it. Even Xia Donglai of the 7th Peerless family refused to let the horse ride it. It would rather go on a hunger strike than allow anyone to ride it. Countless almighties had tried, but all of them had failed. Only one person had succeeded. He was the Heaven's Heart Iron Hunter. The Heaven's Heart Iron Hunter was not a member of the 7 unique civilizations. Chapter 22-23. As soon as she appeared, she used the identity of the Heartless Iron Constable to capture a Dao master criminal who had fled to this place with hands stained with blood and brought him to justice. At that time, she was only a half-step Dao master and had not even achieved Daoification, but she still beat the Dao master half to death and captured him. That battle took place in the sky above the 7 absolute civilizations. So all the Dao masters of the 7 absolute civilizations witnessed it with their own eyes. Her name completely shook the entire 7 absolute civilizations. The Heartless Iron Constable was a constable who claimed to sweep away all injustice in the world and swore to build a world of light. No one knew which force she came from. The only thing they knew was that she had indeed been capturing criminals everywhere for the past 100 years. Over the past 30 years, he had personally captured 3 Dao Lord-level sinners. What was even more shocking was that it was said that when she was capturing a Dao master who had committed heinous crimes in another 7-star civilization, she was stopped by the Master of Civilization. In the end, she injured the Master of Civilization and forcibly captured him. No matter how weak the Master of 7-star civilizations was, he was still at the level of any of the 7 absolute families, or even stronger. However, the Heartless Iron Constable was simply invincible. She directly injured the Master of Civilization and forcibly took him away. Her strength could not be said to be not terrifying. As for the wild gold and silver horse, it was strange that no one was willing to accept, but when faced with the Heartless Iron Constable, it prostrated in front of her and acknowledged her as its master. How many people were shocked by this scene? In the end, Xia Donglai still exchanged the gold and silver horse with the Heartless Iron Constable. For many years, the Heartless Iron Constable's whereabouts were uncertain, capturing criminals everywhere. Now, her mount actually appeared in front of his mansion. How could defeating Army's emperor not be surprised? He quickly walked inside. In the guest hall, several clan elders were courteously receiving a woman dressed in plain white clothes and wearing a veil. Her beautiful black hair was coiled into a ponytail and tied up simply. Her eyes were sharp and deep, as if they could see through everything in the world. Her delicate eyebrows were slightly raised, giving people a feeling of heroic spirit. At this moment, she was sitting quietly. She did not speak. The tea beside her had been cold for a long time, but she had not drunk a single drop. Heartless Iron Constable, defeating Army's emperor, smiled and took the initiative to greet her. He had long admired such a legendary woman. Now that he was able to see him in person, he felt rather fortunate. "You're the Army Destroyer Emperor?" The woman's voice was chilly and straightforward, and it revealed deep decisiveness. "That's right." Heartless Iron Constable nodded and said, "I'm here for Xuan Meng Fei Yu." Emperor defeating Army didn't really understand the reason behind it. Xuan Meng Fei Yu, a member of the 6th Peerless family, had been captured. This was considered a big deal in the 7th Peerless civilization, but to the Heartless Iron Hunters, who captured all criminals in the world, it was actually an insignificant matter. Why would she be alarmed? "It was Xia Donglai who asked me to investigate this case," Heartless Iron Arresters said calmly. Xia Donglai? Emperor Pejuan understood, but at the same time, he didn't. Because of the gold and silver horses, the Heartless Iron Catcher and the 7th Peerless family had some connections. Therefore, they were able to invite the Heartless Iron Catcher to help them. However, why would Xia Donglai worry about Xuan Meng Fei Yu from the 6th Peerless clan? How could he know that Xue Mengfeiyu was actually Xia Donglai's son, Xia Rukin's woman? Of course, Xia Donglai had to worry about Xue Mengfeiyu. However, it would be great if the legendary Heartless Iron Arrester was willing to help them personally. Until now, there had never been a person that she couldn't save. If she could save Xue Mengfeiyu, she could certainly save the greedy Wolf King. The second peerless family is willing to cooperate with the Heartless Iron Arrester. Everyone here can listen to the Heartless Iron Arrester's orders. No need. Heartless Iron Arrester's eyes were cold. Bring me to two places. First, the stargazing platform. Second, the private room where the incident took place. All right. Not long after, at the stargazing platform, several months had passed since the last time Suyu had deceived everyone here. Later, people came up one after another, and there were no longer any traces left. Emperor Defeating Army didn't really understand why Heartless Iron Arrester had come here. Heartless Iron Arrester didn't say a word, and her eyes swept around. Suddenly, she stopped in front of a stone and gently flipped it over, revealing a fragment the size of a fingernail. It was the fragment of flesh left behind when Suyu killed the human demon. After several months of drying, it had turned into dried meat. Emperor Defeating Army was secretly surprised. What powerful eyesight! How could she discover this? Heartless Iron Arrester held the dried meat in her hand, and her eyes were deep. Are you saying that he invited someone and pretended to be killed by him in order to win your trust? That's right, Emperor Defeating Army said with certainty. Many people saw it that day. Why? Is there a hidden story? Shaking her head, Heartless Iron Arrester said, there is no hidden story. It's just that this person's strength is terrifying. He could kill a Pathmaster with just his body. Hearing this, Emperor Defeating Army and the others were all shocked. That human demon didn't show the strength of a Pathmaster. Is there a misunderstanding? Is there really a Pathmaster in this world who would be willing to be killed by Surushu? Even if you offered more benefits, no Pathmaster would be willing to do so, right? Heartless Iron Arrester said calmly. This is the second aspect of his strength. His soul power must be unbelievably strong, as it could control a Pathmaster's body. As far as I know, only the soul race, which is a 9th class race, can split their soul into two independent bodies. If this person isn't a soul race, then he must be a strong man with a soul. Besides, this person is very good at scheming, Heartless Iron Arrester said. It's not a big deal for a person to deceive one person, but if he can deceive everyone, it means that he is confident, powerful, and extremely scheming. If Suyu was here, he would also be shocked. Heartless Iron Arrester was able to see through Suyu's strength with just a piece of dried meat. Emperor Defeating Army couldn't help but gasp in amazement when he heard this. He thought that he had seen through Suyu, but after hearing Heartless Iron Arrester's words, he realized that Suyu was still hiding a lot. After putting away the dried meat, Heartless Iron Arrester said calmly, "Next place." In the private room. Because of the huge incident, the whole restaurant was sealed by the second peerless family, and no one entered or left. Hence, the scene was well preserved. Heartless Iron Arrester looked at the remaining pieces of ice on the ground, which still hadn't melted. After a moment, she said, I roughly understand. Thank you for your help, Emperor Defeating Army. It's my duty, Emperor Defeating Army said. I have a presumptuous request. I hope that when Heartless Iron Arrester rescues Xue Mengfeiyu, you can bring my son back with you. Sure, Heartless Iron Arrester replied expressionlessly. Emperor Defeating Army was grateful, so he took out a storage ring, which contained many resources. Heartless Iron Arrester didn't even look at it. As she said, I only act for the world's justice, and I don't ask for anything in return. This is my path, so please don't hinder my cultivation. Seeking justice for the world was the Heartless Iron Arrester's self-cultivation. Emperor Defeating Army sighed inwardly. He couldn't believe that such a righteous person existed in the world. It's my fault. Emperor Defeating Army took back the ring and said, Thank you, Heartless Iron Arrester. All right. Heartless Iron Arrester turned around, and before she left, she said with deep meaning, If you save your son and Xue Mengfeiyu at the same time, I hope that you can control him and don't let him do anything rash. She glanced at the remaining ice with the corner of her eyes. She had already deduced what happened that day. Combined with Xia Donglai's request to save Xuemeng Feiyu, she was even more certain. That day, Xuemeng Feiyu must have betrayed greedy Wolf King and subdued him first, which gave Su Rishu an opportunity. While Emperor Defeating Army was still confused, Heartless Iron Arrestor jumped onto the gold and silver horse downstairs. The gold and silver horse neighed, and a powerful black light shot out from its eyes, creating a pitch-black hole in the space before it jumped into it. Emperor Defeating Army watched as it left and let out a deep breath. Heartless Iron Arrestor, never fail. Don't worry now. At the same time, Xiaoya Pirate. Recently, a very special guest had arrived. Xiaoya, who was in seclusion, suddenly woke up. She calculated with her fingers and immediately left the seclusion room for the guest hall. In the guest hall, for when elders were accompanying a lady in white with smiles on their faces. Her looks were not bad. Her figure was slim, and her entire body gave off an unfathomable aura. When Xiaoya saw her, she could not help but reveal a trace of fear. This lady's strength was definitely not weaker than Xiaoya's Dao Master, and not just any ordinary Dao Master. However, this Dao Master's eyes would occasionally flash with a dull look, which was not normal. However, at other times, she would regain her shrewdness and depth. What made Xiaoya's heart sink was that the Four Wen Elders were shamelessly complaining to this person. Granny Ming, you must help us. The one-eyed Wen Elder, who was usually arrogant, had a tearful look on his face as he complained to the white-robed Dao Master. Leader, for an outsider, you actually disregarded the contributions we have made to the Xiaoya pirates over the years. You let him climb all over us and even allowed him to beat us up. Actually, the white-robed Dao Master was not old, probably less than 1,000 years old. The Four Wen Elders were at least 10,000 years old. However, they were calling the white-robed Dao Master Granny instead. That's right, Granny Ming, look at our injuries. How disappointing. We've been working hard for the Xiaoya pirates for so many years, and yet we end up being treated like this. The white-robed Dao Master frowned slightly. Something like this actually happened? She turned to look at Xiaoya, who had just arrived, and said unhappily, Xiaoya, how could you allow an outsider to act so recklessly? Xiaoya smiled bitterly in her heart. To be honest, she did not know how this white-robed Dao Master came. According to the Four Wen Elders, when they were studying the seal on that mountain, a Wanzong beast that had lost its way suddenly appeared nearby, without any warning. Furthermore, a person fell from the Wanzong beast's body. That person was the white-robed Dao Master in front of her, who called herself Meng Qi. Chapter 22-24. When they first arrived, Xiaoya fought with him. In the end, not only was he unable to do anything to the other party, he was even suppressed by this Meng Qi. This was because Meng Qi did not have a Dao artifact on her. If Xiaoya used her Dao weapon, she would definitely lose. When she first arrived, this Meng Qi's mind was not very clear. She did not even remember where she came from. She only knew her own name and her father. She had completely forgotten everything else. From then on, she treated the Little Moon Pirates as her home. Every day, he would stay at the bow of the ship, relying on his powerful cultivation to recover his consciousness. His memory was recovering bit by bit, and he had already recovered most of it, but he still couldn't remember where he came from. Therefore, she had to go out for 3 years to search for clues every time, and it had been going on for several decades now. Today was the day he was supposed to come back. His words were logical and precise. He should have regained some of his consciousness. Xiaoya smiled wryly and said, Sister Ke, please listen to my explanation. It was the four of them who made things difficult for us first. One-eyed Elder immediately interrupted her. To prevent her from revealing the truth, he said, We did make things difficult, but did we do anything? No way, right? But what about that Su guy? Without saying a word, you severely injured the four of us, and you didn't even give us any punishment. Grandma Ming, you must seek justice for us. Meng Ke stared at Xiaoya and said, I only want to ask you, did that so-called vice leader Su beat them up? Xiaoxiao was vexed and could only reply, "Yes, that's right." Meng Ke earnestly instructed, "It wasn't easy for you to establish the Little Moon Pirates. You should be well aware of the role of these 4 old men to treat such meritorious subjects. Aren't you afraid of disappointing the hearts of the other pirates?" Xiaoxiao was speechless. The entire Xiaoya pirates would probably be very happy to see the 4 elders beaten up. With what the 4 of them had done in the Little Moon Pirate world, there were many people who wanted to beat them up. Suyu had only done what everyone else wanted to do, but didn't dare to do. "Listen to me," Xiaoxiao wanted to explain, but Meng Ke waved her hand. "There's no need to explain. Immediately bring the 4 elders to find the deputy leader and have him give them an explanation." Hearing this, the 4 elders laughed in their hearts. "Now, let's see what that guy with the surname Su will do. Did he think that he could disrespect them just because the leader admired him? Oomph." Later on, not only would they be stripped of their position as pirates, they would also suffer 10 times the injuries they had suffered. Xiaoxiao's heart sank when she saw their gazes. However, it was impossible for her to let the 4 of them have their way. She had said that she would not let Suyu suffer the same grievances as he had suffered in the Sea Wolf Pirates. This was her promise to Suyu. "All right," Xiaoxiao said. However, the one-eyed elder one said, "Grandma Meng, you should go too." He was very worried that without Meng Ke holding the fort, Xiaoxiao would pretend to agree but oppose him in secret and punish Suyu without any pain. Therefore, he dragged Meng Ke along. Meng Ke wanted to refuse because this was the internal affairs of the Xiao pirates. She did not want to interfere too much. But on second thought, the 4 elders couldn't suppress the situation. So he said, "All right, but I will only watch from the side and won't make a move." "Thank you, Grandma Meng," one-eyed elder one said gratefully. What they wanted was Meng Ke's presence. Xiaoxiao secretly hated these 4 old fellows. She quickly calculated in her heart. No matter what, even if she had a fight with Meng Ke again, she could not expel Suyu. However, it was inevitable that Suyu would receive some punishment and put on an act. Who asked the 4 elders to find a character that even she was wary of? Very quickly, the group arrived in front of Suyu's mansion. One-eyed elder one turned his gaze, saying, "Grandma Meng, please let us negotiate with Deputy Leader Su ourselves. He is still young, and as an older generation, we are willing to forgive his mistakes. As long as he is honest and admits his mistakes, there is no need to pursue this matter." To this, Meng Ke nodded her head in agreement, gratified. "It is the Xiaoya pirate's fortune that you can think this way." Xiaoxiao creased her brows. She did not think that these 4 old things would be so magnanimous. However, it would be best if Suyu could settle it by himself before she made an official appearance. The 4 elders turned around and walked toward the mansion. The moment they turned around, the one-eyed elder one's blue eyes revealed a deep coldness. Forgive Suyu? Dream on. His intentions for entering the mansion were simple. He wanted to create trouble and force Suyu to be angry so that he could strike again. Xiaoxiao would not be lenient towards someone who refused to repent and beat them up twice. With such a goal in mind, the 4 of them entered the mansion for the second time. In the backyard, Suyu was quietly comprehending the evil dragon scripture, hoping to bring his heavenly dragon body to the next level. As he was comprehending, Shuemeng Feiyu walked over with her head lowered. She said respectfully, "Deputy Leader Su, the 4 elders are here again." Shuemeng Feiyu had already gotten used to her identity as a maid. Suyu didn't do anything improper to her, as she had imagined. Instead, he just ordered her around like a maid. This allowed Shuemeng Feiyu to heave a sigh of relief. Hence, she behaved even more obediently, afraid that Suyu would change his mind in a fit of anger. Suyu stopped comprehending, a cold light flickering in his eyes. He had already warned them not to come to his mansion. With a flash of his figure, he immediately appeared in the front yard. He saw the 4 elders pointing around in the yard with their noses in the air, ordering their servants to prepare the best food and wine. Even after Suyu had appeared, they were still extremely calm, ordering their servants around. One of the servants was too slow, and he was angrily scolded by one of the elders. They were clearly treating this place as their own mansion. "What do the four of you want to teach me this time?" Suyu said indifferently. There was no smile on his face, and his tone was extremely cold. It was obvious that Suyu was not friendly. But the four One Elders did not seem to notice it. The one-eyed One Elder sat down and shouted, "Kneel down, kowtow, and apologize to us." Suyu was amused. Even though they were old, they were not very shrewd. They wanted to make him angry, but they were using such a crude trick. Anyone with the slightest bit of shrewdness would think about whether the four One Elders were plotting something. But even though he knew that they were trying to provoke him, Suyu was still angry. So what if he was angry? What could they do to him? Kowtow? How many do you need to kowtow? Not many. Just 1,000. The one-eyed One Elder said indifferently. Even if Suyu really kowtowed, it would be useless even if he kowtowed 10,000 times. They would never forgive him. 1,000, right? Sure, as you wish. Suyu's wine-red glow flashed, and a light barrier appeared, trapping the four of them within it. His gaze was cold. If they wanted to make him angry, then let them have their way. The four One Elders were calm and composed. Was Suyu going to attack them next? At most, he would just injure them. Would he dare threaten their lives? The more heavily injured they were, the better the effect. Now, if none of you kowtow to me 1,000 times, I can consider letting you leave. If you don't, then don't even think about leaving my mansion, Suyu calmly said. The four old men were already at odds with Suyu. Even though their abilities were average, if they wanted to ruin Suyu's plans, they could use their connections within the Xiaoya pirates to do so. To prevent any mishaps, it was best to destroy them. Anyway, with Suyu's knowledge of words, Xiaoya did not care about their lives. Their deaths would be in vain. The four pitiful One Elders had no idea that they had forced themselves into a dead end. The one-eyed One Elder let out a cold laugh. "Ignorant child, you want us to kneel?" The other One Elder said righteously, "We would rather die than kneel." What they wanted was a conflict with Suyu. However, Elder One had just finished speaking when Suyu casually tapped the space between his eyebrows. With a creak, this One Elder fell to the ground, his soul and body destroyed at the same time. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the smiling one-eyed One Elder and the other two elders turned stiff. They looked at the dead One Elder without blinking, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Suyu really dared to kill them? Did he not know what this meant? They were the only ones who could undo the words on the seal. "I think the three of you would rather die than kneel, right?" Suyu calmly said. The one-eyed elder's body trembled, the arrogance on his face disappearing, replaced by deep fear. With a thud, he knelt on the ground and started kowtowing. "Deputy Leader Su, please spare our lives." The other two One Elders also knelt and kowtowed. They were used to being arrogant, knowing that no one among the Xiaoya pirates dared to do anything to them. Suyu was the only one who didn't care about their lives at all, which was why he had scared them. Thump, thump, thump. Suyu counted them one by one. By the time he reached 1,000, the three of them were already bleeding. "At least you know what's good for you." Suyu had said that if they were willing to kowtow 1,000 times, he would let them go. He was a man of his word. "Scram!" Suyu lightly shouted, sending the three of them flying with a kick. This time, he had used a lot of strength, breaking all the bones in their bodies to teach them an unforgettable lesson. Crack! The three of them landed outside the yard, two of the One Elders fainting. Only the one-eyed One Elder was still conscious, but his body was in so much pain that he would rather have fainted. He could not help but squeal like a pig being slaughtered. Meng Qir's expression was cold as she glared at Xiaoya. "Do you still want to explain?" Xiaoya was speechless. She secretly blamed Suyu for his carelessness. Could he not see that the four One Elders were plotting something? He had actually injured them once again. Now, even if she wanted to plead for Suyu, it would be difficult. Meng Qir squatted down, using the power of a path master to heal the three of them. The other two One Elders also woke up, their faces pale. Once awake, the three of them hugged each other and cried, "Grandma Ming, please seek justice for us." Deputy Leader Su's nature is hard to change. We try to persuade him with kind words, hoping that he would restrain himself. In the end, not only did he force us to kowtow 1,000 times, he even severely injured us. The one-eyed One elder hated Suyu to the core. He actually dared to force them to kneel and apologize. Chapter 22-25. Hearing that, Meng Qir's face turned cold. Xiaoya, do as you see fit. Xiaoya was helpless. Just as she was about to say something, Suyu, who had sensed the commotion outside, walked out. He already knew that the four elders had come prepared. He wanted to see what kind of people the four elders could invite. However, standing at the entrance of the mansion, he looked out. When his gaze fell on Meng Qir, he could no longer look away. At the same time, his heart sank. Meng Qir, how could he forget? She had caught him in the body of a Luo Ho, and he had almost been transformed by her. Fortunately, Suyu had used all his strength and finally succeeded in confusing her memory. Now that he saw her again, and her eyes were clear, she must have regained her consciousness. Thinking of this, Suyu's heart was heavy. Did he have to expose the sword every day? He did not want to do so in front of Xiaoya. Father. However, what caught Suyu off guard was that after staring at him for a while, Meng Qir suddenly cried out in surprise. Her white shadow blurred, and she threw herself into Suyu's arms. Suyu was stunned at a loss. She had not regained her memory and still thought of him as her father. Meng Qir had often been beaten by her father when she was young, which had left a psychological scar. Therefore, Suyu's beating had confused Meng Qir, and she had mistakenly thought that Suyu was her father. He was stunned, and so were Xiaoya and the three elders. What did she call Su Rushu? Father? After Xiaoya became the leader of the pirates, she had seen and heard many strange stories. But a powerful pathmaster who had cultivated for tens of thousands of years had recognized a young man who was only 100 years old as her father. She found it hard to believe such a ridiculous thing had happened in front of her. Father, I finally found you. Qir missed you so much. She kept rubbing against Suyu's arms, her eyes filled with tears. Suyu's mouth twitched. He had really picked up a big daughter. However, Suyu did not dare to tell her the truth. This woman was extremely powerful. Not only had the three Pathmasters of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce failed to capture her, but they had also been injured by her. It was clear how powerful she was. If he explained everything clearly and made her recall everything that had happened in the past, Suyu felt that he wouldn't be far from death. Cough, cough, that good daughter. Father has been looking for you for a long time. Suyu pried her hand away, coughed dryly, and became Meng Qir's father with a straight face. Looking at the dumbfounded Xiaoya, Suyu smiled awkwardly. Let me introduce you. This is my daughter, Meng Qir. It seems like you already know each other. Xiaoya nodded blankly and laughed dryly. I know him. Meng Qir recovered from her surprise and looked at Old One's group of four, frowning. Father, why did you come into conflict with my four grandsons? Grandson? Suyu was stunned. What kind of messy relationship is this? After a moment of hesitation, she told him everything that had happened. After listening, Meng Qir angrily turned around and kicked each of them. Three bastards, do you have eyes? Is this how you treat my father? Apologize. The three Old One had already lost their ability to think after witnessing such an absurd scene. Sorry, Deputy Leader Su. What did you call him? Meng Qir glared at them. Impudent things. Quickly call him grandfather. Grandfather? Xiaoya, who was at the side, almost laughed out loud. The four Old Ones sucked up to Meng Qir and volunteered to be her grandsons. Now, they had to call Su Rushu grandfather. The one-eyed Old One's eyes widened. Grandfather? Bastard. Why aren't you greeting him? Meng Qir glared at them. The three of them looked at each other, their faces pained as if they had eaten a bowl of flies. They lowered their heads and said, Grandfather, grandfather. So you could not help but laugh. These three old fellows would never have dreamed that they would not be able to suck up to Suyu, but instead have to call him grandfather? Three good great-great-grandchildren. Suyu smiled faintly. Xiaoya looked inside the mansion and said, Where's the last one? Dead. Suyu still had a calm smile on his face as he casually said. Hearing this, Xiaoya's expression changed. Dead? The four Old One each had their own specialties. With one dead, who could break the seal in the mountain? Leader, Do not worry too much. If there is a need, I can help you translate the words, Suyu said. Xiaoya's eyes were filled with sadness and complexity. It was easy to say, although Suyu had some attainments, he was still lacking compared to the four old one. He could not replace any one of them. But on account of Meng Kuer, she could not get angry. Forget it, I'll find someone else. Suyu shrugged. All right, but I suggest you chase these three old things away first. Leaving them on the Xiaoya pirates will be trouble sooner or later. With their selfish nature, if the Xiaoya pirates were to be in trouble one day, they would be the first to betray the Xiaoya pirates. There was no doubt about that. Xiaoya was already unhappy that Suyu had killed a precious old one. Chasing him away, Xiaoya suspected that Suyu was deliberately making things difficult for her. She said, Deputy Leader Su, if we chase them away, who will break the words on the seal in the future? Just you? Suyu said, Of course, I alone am enough. Xiaoya wanted to laugh. Just based on your half-baked attainments? She said with a hint of anger. All right, then why don't you tell me how many words you've deciphered when you went to the mountain? Given how rare those words were, Suyu being able to decipher even one was already impressive. Decipher a few? That was impossible. Suyu thought for a moment. I didn't count carefully, but there should be no less than 10,000. 10,000? Xiaoya really felt that the current Suyu was a little unreasonable. She thought to herself, why don't you say that you have already completely removed the seal? In any case, I have completely broken the evil energy seal. Xiaoya was secretly amused. He really said that, but then she thought about it. Given Suyu's performance in the second most powerful family, would he be someone who would say such meaningless words? She said, Wait a moment, I'll be back soon. With a flash of her figure, Xiaoya disappeared. After a while, she returned with a face full of shock. She had been to the mountain. That seal had been completely broken. How did you do it? Xiaoya looked at Suyu in shock, as if she was looking at a huge treasure house that had never been excavated. Suyu said, Leader, you can think of it as a guess. Guess? Guessing all 10,000 words? She turned her gaze and took out the 10 words that she had used to test Suyu. Among them, there were 5 words that the 4 elders' guesses were wrong all along. Suyu nodded. You can say that. Xiaoya gasped. It was true. She could not believe that Suyu was so young. How did he know all the words of the 10,000 clans? Objectively speaking, this was impossible. Deputy Leader Su, you really surprised me. Xiaoya patted Suyu's shoulder, her heart brimming with joy. In just 3 days, Suyu had done something that the 4 elders might not have been able to do in decades. Such an earth-shattering talent had become her subordinate. Xiaoya felt as if she had hit the jackpot. Humph! Menka let out a light grunt, staring at Xiaoya with a slightly unfriendly gaze. I've been paying attention for a long time. How can you continue to call him deputy leader? Xiaoya was slightly stunned, then became embarrassed. She and Meng Kuer were sisters, and Suyu was Meng Kuer's father. In that case, didn't she have to call Suyu uncle? Suyu also sensed that something was wrong. He grinned. Great, he had another big niece. Why? Do you want to take advantage of my seniority? Meng Kuer glared at him. If she called Suyu a junior, then wouldn't Meng Kuer be the junior of her junior? Xiaoya had no choice but to say, Uncle, Uncle Su. Suyu was embarrassed. Let's not address each other. If there's anything in the future, just say it. Try not to address each other. The relationship between them was really messy. Suddenly, Suyu noticed Elder One and the other 2. Deal with the 3 of them as soon as possible. Xiaoya noticed the pale faces of Elder One and the other 2. Her gaze turned cold. She had waited for this day for a long time. The 4 of them had indeed contributed to the Xiaoya pirates, but the negative impact was also very bad. Now that someone could replace them, it couldn't be better. Men, send the 3 Elder One away from the Pirate Alliance. Xiaoya did not choose to kill them. Although they had been hated by Xiaoya for a long time, they had contributed greatly to the Xiaoya pirates. Therefore, she only banished them, not killed them. A few pirates immediately came forward and escorted them away. They had just left when the pirates who had received the news cheered and celebrated. Some even set off firecrackers. It was obvious that they had been infuriated by the four elder when all these years. After dealing with Elder One, Su Yu thought of his own maid, Xue Meng Feiyu. It was not a good idea to have her by his side all the time. Xue Meng Feiyu, it's best to exchange her as soon as possible. As you said before, the Heavenly Legacy Cave is about to appear. It's better not to complicate matters at this critical juncture. Xie Xiaoya had a faint smile. You really don't plan to take a bite? According to my observation, she should still be a virgin. Su Yu laughed softly. Even if she is a hostage, taking her chastity is not something I should do. After hearing that, Xie Xiaoya and Meng Qir looked at Su Yu strangely. Especially Xie Xiaoya. She had seen Xue Meng Feiyu's unparalleled beauty with her own eyes. She had thought that Su Yu was just saying it. She did not expect that after keeping Xue Meng Feiyu by his side for so long, Su Yu really did not do anything. His temperament alone was enough to make Xie Xiaoya look at him in a different light. As for Meng Qir, she had never seen Xue Meng Feiyu before. She asked meaningfully, "Is she beautiful?" Xie Xiaoya nodded deeply. She is one of the most beautiful women in the 7 unique civilizations. The successors of the 2 families are fighting over her. Chapter 22-26. Seeing that the topic was getting further and further away, Su Yu said, "Please arrange for this woman to be returned as soon as possible." All right, Xie Xiaoya agreed. Meanwhile, outside the Pirate Alliance, a lone boat descended from a pirate warship. On the warship stood another deputy leader of the Xiaoya pirates, Tai Shou. He put on a fake smile and cupped his fists at the 3 elders. "I'll send you 3 off here. Have a safe journey." After saying that, he turned the giant warship around while laughing. The 3 elder ones sat on the boat and floated towards the endless void. The one-eyed elder was disappointed. Everything had happened too quickly and violently. It was like a dream. Before yesterday, they were extraordinary figures who could call the shots in the Xiaoya pirates. They were top-notch almighties who could rival the leader. But now, they were chased away like 3 stray dogs. The change was so drastic and fast that it was hard to accept. "I can't accept this." One of the elders clenched his fists. "We've done so much for the Xiaoya pirates, and were chased away just like that." They had never thought about how they had used their identities to act like tyrants for so many years, and how much they had benefited from it. Not to mention anything else, just the many treasures in that mountain alone were enough for them to stuff their own pockets. Now that they were chased away, they had to put on an aggrieved expression. The one-eyed elder was about to say something, but suddenly, a cold voice was heard clearly by the 3 of them. "Which pirate group do you belong to?" The 3 of them looked up and saw an ordinary horse galloping through the air. On the back of the horse sat a woman in plain white clothes. She was the heartless iron constable who had come to rescue Xue Meng Feiyu. "Who are you?" The 3 elders had good eyesight. Putting aside the fact that a woman had dared to barge into the vicinity of the Pirate Alliance for no reason, just the fact that the horse she was riding could step on the void and remain unscathed showed how extraordinary it was. "Answer me," the heartless iron constable calmly said, ignoring their question. Without the protection of the Xiaoya pirates, the 3 elders were much more obedient. They immediately said, "The Xiaoya pirates." The heartless iron constable nodded. "You're lucky." She was looking for the Xiaoya pirates. Unfortunately, she met 3 of them as soon as she arrived. "Bring me to the Xiaoya pirates, and I will spare your lives," Heartless Iron Catcher said. She had heard of Xie Xiaoya's name before. It was said that she was the strongest of the top 10 pirates. She was quite powerful, so unless it was absolutely necessary, it was best not to clash with her head-on. Hearing this, the 3 elders had bitter expressions. "Sir, you're late." The Heartless Iron Constable frowned. After asking carefully, he found out that the 3 of them had been expelled. They couldn't even protect themselves, so how could they bring people in? The Heartless Iron Constable said indifferently, "It doesn't matter. We just need to change the method. You guys are doing this, Xiaoya pirates." Su Yu and the other 2, who were discussing how to deal with Xue Meng Feiyu, suddenly received a report that the 3 Wen elders had returned. Xie Xiaoya glared at the person who came to report. "Do you still need to report to me how to deal with it?" Since they had returned, he would chase them away. However, the three elders captured a person from the sixth absolute civilization. She claimed that she came to rescue Xuan Meng Feiyu. Xie Xiaoye was surprised. She said thoughtfully, bring them here. Before long, the three elders brought over a woman with disheveled clothes and blood seeping from the corners of her mouth. She was obviously injured. There were many wounds on her body from the three elders' attacks. You came from the sixth absolute civilization? Xie Xiaoye took off her veil and found an extremely delicate face beneath it. She wouldn't dare to say that she was the only one in the world, but she wasn't much inferior to Xuan Meng Feiyu. The captured woman nodded fearfully. Xie Xiaoye's eyes were filled with suspicion. She suddenly extended her hand and pointed a finger between her brows, searching her soul. Compared to questioning, searching her soul was more reliable. After searching for a while, she discovered that she was Xuan Meng Feiyu's personal maid. At least, that was what her memory showed. She is indeed someone from the sixth absolute civilization. She should have come to rescue Xuan Meng Feiyu, Xie Xiaoye said indifferently. She didn't care too much. This woman only had the cultivation of a half-step Dao master. Out of loyalty, she had traveled 1,000 miles to come here. She couldn't do anything alone. The three of you, Xie Xiaoye looked at the three elders and sighed in her heart. She said, rest for a day and leave tomorrow. The three elders sighed. We don't have the face to stay. Farewell. After saying that, the three elders left hurriedly. It was as if they would lose their lives if they stayed any longer. Xie Xiaoye thought that the three elders were concerned about their reputation and didn't want to be noticed. But Suyu frowned slightly. He sensed that something was amiss. Finally, Xie Xiaoye looked at the captured woman. She had an idea and said, what a coincidence. It just so happens that Xuan Meng Feiyu needs to be sent back. This woman can replace her and become your maid. What do you think? Suyu looked at the beautiful woman in white before him and shook his head lightly. I don't think anything of it. Xie Xiaoye patted his shoulder and said, a pirate should act like a pirate. Who doesn't like women at all? Suyu said meaningfully, I might have accepted other women, but this woman, I advise you to either let her go or kill her. It's best not to keep her on the pirate ship. Hearing that, Xie Xiaoye understood what he was implying. She stared at the woman in white cautiously and said, what do you think is wrong with her? Is she too pretty? It was hard to understand why such a beautiful woman would willingly become someone else's maid. No, it doesn't matter whether she's pretty or not. What's important is that her subtle expressions don't match her nervousness and fear. Suyu's observation was meticulous. A person who harbors fear in her heart doesn't move at all. Indeed, if a nervous person showed fear on their face, their body would show the corresponding symptoms. For example, they would be bewildered or shaken, subconsciously trying to hide the panic in their hearts. It was impossible for them to not move an inch. This was something only someone with a strong, confident, and calm heart could do. Moreover, look at her palms. They are rougher than the rest of her skin. It means that she often holds things with her hands. Suyu said, among them, the roughness of her left hand should be caused by something like a rein being worn over a long period of time, while her right hand is caused by holding a sword all year round. I can imagine that she must be riding a horse or a savage beast all year round. Moreover, it should be the same mount. This mount should be her exclusive mount. However, have you searched her memory for the mount that accompanied her all year round? Xie Xiaoye shook her head. There is no such thing as a landline in her memory. She understood what Suyu was trying to say. This woman's memory must be fake. Then look at her feet. It seems like she is standing casually, but the tips of her feet are aimed at you, leader. Suyu's gaze was deep. This is a defensive posture. It is a subconscious action of a person. It shows that she is constantly on guard against you. And a person with fear in her heart should avoid direct or indirect contact with the target of her fear. If she was really afraid of you, the tips of her feet should be moving elsewhere, not aimed at you. Hearing Suyu's analysis, Xie Xiaoye had a rough idea. She shook her head lightly and said, it does make sense, but isn't it too hasty? I don't think she is. Suddenly, Xie, who had been suspicious a moment ago, attacked the woman without warning. This attack caught the woman off guard. She was testing whether the woman was really on guard against her, as Suyu had said. She was also testing the woman's true abilities. However, what surprised Xiaoya was the woman was caught off guard, and her body was pierced by Xiaoya's palm. She fell unconscious in a pool of blood. Xiaoya asked suspiciously, "Are you sure there's a problem with her identity?" Suyu shook his head. "I'm not sure. That's why I said, either let her go or kill her." However, my guesses have never been wrong. Ever since he had started cultivating, everything he had guessed had always been correct without exception. Before Xiaoya could say anything, Meng Ke stroked her chin and looked at the woman. She said thoughtfully, "I feel like I have seen this woman somewhere before." Suyu's heart skipped a beat. Could she be someone related to Xiaoyan? I remember now. Meng Ke suddenly stood up, her eyes filled with shock. She is the heartless Iron Constable. When I was traveling around the nearby civilizations, I saw a civilization that worshipped her and erected a statue of her. Heartless Iron Constable? Xiaoya was shocked. Who didn't know about the Heartless Iron Constable? They were known as one of the world's most famous constables. In this world, no one who was wanted by them had ever escaped. Xiaoya's heart was filled with murderous intent. To the pirate alliance that roamed the dark regions, the Heartless Iron Constable was their nemesis. If one day, the Heartless Iron Constable was determined to capture them, none of the 10 great pirate leaders would be able to escape. Now, perhaps in order to continue hiding her identity, the woman did not retaliate on purpose and allowed herself to be knocked unconscious. If she did not take this opportunity to kill her, when would she? Xiaoya condensed a sphere in her palm and was about to kill her completely. "Leader, please wait," Suyu suddenly said. Xiaoya said, "Is there something wrong?" Suyu was a little embarrassed. "I can kill her, but wouldn't it be a pity to kill such a world-famous and beautiful constable just like that? Instead of wasting it, why not satisfy me once and I'll kill her again? How about that?" Xiaoya was suspicious. "You?" Meng Feiyu was placed in front of him, but Suyu had not touched her for several days. Why was he suddenly interested in the Heartless Iron Constable? Suyu laughed and said, "Actually, I hate Meng Feiyu's character and do not want to have anything to do with that kind of woman. But the Heartless Iron Constable is a person that everyone respects. If I could have him, I would be satisfied even if I died." That made sense. However, Suyu had previously said that even enemies would not be willing to force them and take away their chastity. Now it seemed like it was just empty words. The image of Suyu in Xiaoya's heart dimmed a little. After a moment of hesitation, she said, "Fine, I'll leave her to you. But you must kill her and not leave any loose ends." "Definitely." Suyu looked anxious. He picked her up by the waist and looked left and right. Finally, he came to a battleship that was slightly further away from the main battleship. Seeing that, Xiaoya was both annoyed and amused. "Why are you hiding so far away? I won't peek." Suyu placed the Heartless Iron Constable on the soft grass, then immediately began to remove her clothes in a hurry. Chapter 22-27. Just as Suyu was about to touch the Heartless Iron Constable's collar, she opened her eyes without warning and reached out to grab Suyu's wrist. Suyu reacted quickly, and with a somersault in the air, he jumped away from his original spot and avoided her grasp. "Your reaction is fast." The Heartless Iron Constable sat up and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Her eyes were calm and sharp as she sized Suyu up. "You flatter me," Suyu said calmly. The Heartless Iron Constable took a light breath and stared at Suyu as if she wanted to see through him. "Your abilities are top-notch, and your intelligence is like a demon's. Among those of the same age that I have seen, you could be ranked in the top 10. Top 10? You think too highly of me." Shaking her head lightly, the Heartless Iron Constable said, "I never think highly of anyone, nor do I look down on anyone. You could indeed be ranked in the top 10. She had used a secret technique to secretly change her memory. In the end, she had successfully deceived Xiaoya, but not Suyu. Her original intention was to pretend to be a hostage and infiltrate the Xiaoya pirates, waiting for an opportunity to rescue Meng Feiyu. Unfortunately, Suyu was observant and intelligent. He could see through her suspicious identity. This was the first time she had made a mistake since she had been a constable. But there was still a chance. The person in front of her was a deputy captain. He should know the whereabouts of Xuan Meng Fei Yu and the greedy Wolf King. If she captured him, she could still successfully take them away. So, you plan to capture me now that your plan has failed? So you looked at the heartless iron constable with a lecherous gaze. Are you not afraid of falling into my hands? When that time comes, you will be my woman. The heartless iron constable said calmly. As long as you have the ability. Swish, she grabbed her waist with her right hand and immediately pulled out a soft sword. The sword was as soft as a willow, but it was filled with powerful space energy. Surrender. The heartless iron constable thrust her sword forward. As they were separated by 100 feet, the sword should not have been able to reach him. However, the body of the sword strangely became 100 feet long and pointed at Su Yu's chest. Su Yu's eyelids twitched. He had already sensed it and dodged. Creak! The sword brushed past his shoulder and cut off a piece of his sleeve that was stained with blood. Space law? No, it's the space domain. Su Yu's eyes became slightly grave. This woman might not be proficient in space domain, but within that soft sword, there was a rather solid space domain sealed. The fact that the sword could instantly grow longer was the effect of the space domain. To be able to see the space domain, it seems that you should be somewhat proficient in space divine arts, or even space laws. The heartless iron arrestor said indifferently, his wrist shaking. Suddenly, the soft sword, which had missed its target, turned around and headed for Su Yu's back. Space vortex! Su Yu shouted in a low voice, while a space vortex immediately appeared behind him. The tip of the soft sword pierced into the space vortex, but it came out from the space on the right side of Su Yu's arm. At the moment of crisis, he used the law of space to resolve the other party's attack. You are indeed proficient in the law of space, the heartless iron catcher said. Then, with a violent shake of his wrist, the soft sword immediately divided into 9 small soft swords. They surrounded Su Yu from all directions, leaving him with no way out. These small swords also contained the space realm. If Su Yu was stabbed by them, even his heavenly dragon Taoist body might not be able to withstand it. Space folding. What Su Yu folded wasn't his own body, but the surrounding space. However, the surrounding space was like layers of paper. Apart from Su Yu, everything around him was distorted. The positions of the 9 soft swords that attacked him were immediately disrupted. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Su Yu used the space transportation and teleported out from a position where there was a flaw. Ding! Just as he was about to leave, the tips of the 9 soft swords touched together, making a crisp sound. If Su Yu had been 1 step slower, the tips of the 9 swords would have pierced into Su Yu's body. The heartless iron catcher's expression was calm. His attack had failed, so he held the sword with both hands. The entire body of the sword was suddenly fragmented, turning into countless densely packed space scales. They were as small as fish scales, but the difference was that each piece contained the space realm. The scales were like impenetrable raindrops, sprinkling all over the sky. So you had nowhere to hide. His eyes turned cold, and the royal dragon sword appeared in his palm. With his feet as the center, his body spun on the spot, and the royal dragon sword in his hand also drew an elegant arc in the air. The arc was like a flash of lightning, accompanied by bursts of dragon roars. Large pieces of scales, like white snow, were frantically rolled back. The heartless iron catcher pinched a finger with her left hand, and a huge black tortoise appeared under her feet. The black tortoise poked its head out, and a pair of indifferent eyes gently looked at the sweeping arc. It stood up unhurriedly. It used its thick and broad shell to block the scales and the arcs that were coming at it. What slightly surprised Su Yu was that the black tortoise was unknown, and its tortoise shell was terrifyingly hard. The scales were mounted on the tortoise shell, and the space realm inside was completely ineffective. This was the space realm. As a realm evolved from the 8 great rules, the power of such a realm was far stronger than ordinary realms. Even Su Yu's sky dragon body might not be able to withstand the space realm. However, this unknown tortoise could do it. How could Su Yu not be surprised? Puff, puff, puff. The black tortoise blocked all the densely packed scales and arcs, then slowly lay on the ground, motionless. The heartless iron catcher said lightly, "You are indeed very strong. In terms of strength alone, you could be ranked in the top 100 of the peers I have met." She slowly put down the soft sword, and a golden tortoise appeared on her small, fair palm. It was not a tortoise, but a tortoise-shaped furnace. In the furnace, an inextinguishable fire was burning. As soon as this thing appeared, Suyu suddenly felt a powerful and unparalleled crisis. All the hair on his body stood up involuntarily. The bones all over his body trembled slightly again, as if they were about to be melted by the furnace fire. What shocked Suyu even more was that the divine nine-dragon cauldron in his body had a slight movement, letting out a few dragon roars. It was as if he had encountered something familiar. The last time the divine nine-dragon cauldron moved was in the ancient dream forbidden lands of the demon realm. In the face of the human ancestors' life cauldron, the divine nine-dragon cauldron had once cheered. This was the second time, although it was very weak. It could not be underestimated. That golden tortoise was definitely not an ordinary thing. I have to finish this quickly, so I can only use this thing, the heartless iron catcher said calmly. She had been handling cases for decades and had never failed. Even when facing the master of a seven-star civilization, she could still injure him. Therefore, it looked like this golden tortoise-shaped furnace. The desolate, suppressing black tortoise furnace, the heartless iron catcher said softly. With a flick of her hand, the golden tortoise turned into a living creature and pounced on Suyu. Its size was obviously very small, but in Suyu's field of vision, the shadow on its abdomen was almost like the sky, boundless and endless. No matter which direction Suyu dodged in, he could not avoid it. His heart trembled. What was this thing? It did not look like a fairy embryo of a Taoist artifact, let alone a Taoist artifact. He immediately used Xiao Dai's perspective, and as soon as he saw it, he gasped. Chapter 22-28. The color of this golden tortoise was actually dark purple. Moreover, within the dark purple, there were hints of black. It should be known that the color of the Dao artifacts, in Xiao Dai's eyes, was only light blue. Only the top Dao artifacts would be dark blue. However, the golden tortoise in front of him had not only surpassed the blue category, but had reached a dark purple, with hints of black. Its level was simply unimaginable. Suyu even suspected that it was an existence of the same level as the divine nine-dragon cauldron. Sensing the extreme danger, Suyu no longer held back. Time and space freeze. His eyes suddenly shot out two intersecting colors, weaving into a giant hand. The giant hand suddenly grasped the time and space within a radius of billions of miles. All of a sudden, time and space fell into a state of stagnation. Apart from a few powerful path masters, such as Xie, who vaguely sensed the drastic change in time and space, everyone else was frozen in place. As for the heartless iron catcher in front of him, the golden tortoise ignored it, forcibly crushing the giant hand condensed from the law of time and space, and pressing down with a loud rumble. Suyu's heart skipped a beat. He put away the royal dragon sword and took out the pitch-black sinful sword. Zhaoxi. Without hesitation, he launched a powerful attack at the frozen heartless iron catcher. All of a sudden, the heavens and the earth darkened. A smear of darkness and light coexisted at the highest point of the world. Where the two intersected, a simple and unadorned sword energy was born, casually pointing at the heartless iron catcher. This was a brand new form after he comprehended the sword of Zhaoxi. Its power was even greater than before. This sword should have wiped out the heartless iron catcher on the spot. However, because of the space domain, the soft sword at her waist trembled slightly, shattering the time and space that had sealed the heartless iron catcher. The heartless iron catcher woke up in time to witness the terrifying sword right in front of her. Her expression, which had always been calm, finally changed. "Come back." She immediately waved her hand, and the golden tortoise that was about to pounce on Suyu immediately appeared in front of her. The golden tortoise turned into the strange black tortoise just now, standing on its hind legs to block Zhaoxi. Ding! A crisp sound rang out. The sinful sword cut 3 inches into the black tortoise's shell and could not go any further. The black tortoise felt the pain and was the first to turn. To prevent the sinful sword from being swept away, Suyu immediately pulled it out and used the morning and evening sword move once again. The heartless iron constable's eyes flickered with fear. She grabbed the black tortoise and shouted, "Gold and silver horses!" Cluck! With a majestic hiss, a spatial crack suddenly appeared between the two of them. A group of seemingly ordinary horses galloped out. The heartless iron catcher took advantage of the situation and jumped on it. Then, the gold and silver horse leaped and jumped into the void. So you thought for a moment. Not only did he not give chase, but he also heaved a sigh of relief. He's finally been let go. So you had heard many stories about the heartless iron hunters in the Pirate Alliance. It was rumored that she was a legendary woman whose goal was to create light. So you couldn't help but gasp in amazement after learning about its many legendary stories. He even felt a little ashamed of his own inferiority. He felt that there was kindness in his heart, and sometimes he would act chivalrously. However, he had never thought of protecting the world and destroying evil as his duty. At least, in terms of ideals, Suyu wasn't as noble as the Heartless Iron Hunter. Moreover, the Heartless Iron Hunter was a woman of her word. Over the years, she had kept her promise. Suyu had seen the criminals she had hired to capture. Any one of them was a bloody criminal who would make one's scalp go numb. Even if Suyu was present, he would probably get rid of them. Suyu wasn't a noble and selfless person, but he admired and liked people with noble ideals. Therefore, when he found out that this woman was the world-famous Heartless Iron Hunter, he had the heart to let her live. Just now, he had stopped Xiaoya from killing her. However, Suyu was now a spy. If he openly let the Heartless Iron Hunter go, wouldn't everyone suspect his identity as a spy? Therefore, Suyu pretended to be a man who lusted after beauty and wanted to be rude to the Heartless Iron Hunter. He even deliberately brought her to the worship at the edge so that the Heartless Iron Hunter could escape. In this way, the Heartless Iron Hunter wouldn't have thought that a lecherous person like Suyu was actually trying to save her. She would never have guessed that he was a spy. As for the big fight that followed, it was beyond Suyu's expectations. Suyu knew that the Heartless Iron Hunter hadn't fainted, but she was so powerful that Suyu couldn't control her. If he didn't have some skills, he might have been captured by the Heartless Iron Hunter. Not only had he failed to save her, but he had also been captured. Just the thought of that scene made Suyu's stomach hurt. Luckily, after some twists and turns, he finally managed to let the Heartless Iron Hunter go. Swish, 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 Xiaoya and Meng Qir, who had felt the ripples of the battle, rushed over. Looking at the slightly battered Suyu, the two women's gazes sharpened. "Where's the Heartless Iron Hunter?" Xiaoya asked with narrowed eyes, her heart sinking. Suyu said in shame. She pretended to be unconscious. Before I could start, she took the opportunity to escape. Xia gently sniffed the ripples of the battle nearby and said, "Then what are the traces of battle here?" Xiaoya knew about that terrifying tortoise. But who did the chaotic time and space and the powerful sword energy belong to? It seems that one of the Heartless Iron Hunter's old enemies suddenly appeared and launched a sneak attack. Xiaoya frowned. Such a coincidence? The Heartless Iron Hunter was just about to kill Suyu, and that old enemy appeared? There was no such coincidence in this world. However, the urgent matter was not to investigate the cause, but to deal with it. Deputy Leader Su, return to your mansion immediately and protect Shuemeng Feiyu. Don't let her be captured, Xiaoya said. The Heartless Iron Hunter's target was most likely this woman. All right. Suyu immediately returned to the mansion. Meng Qir's eyes flashed. Father, I'll go with you. Suyu naturally would not object. With the powerful Meng Qir, it would be much easier to deal with the Heartless Iron Hunter if he really appeared. The two returned to the mansion, and Suyu set up a spell outside. The Heartless Iron Hunter's gold and silver horses were said to be able to travel through space at any time. If it suddenly appeared, it would be impossible to guard against it. Therefore, Suyu set up a layer spell. Once there was a living creature traveling through space nearby, the spell would immediately sense it. Father, I'll go watch over that little girl. All right. Meng Qir's eyes flashed mysteriously as she went to Su Yu's bedroom. In the room, Xuemeng Feiyu was earnestly making the bed, not daring to slack off. Hearing movement behind her, she immediately turned around, lowered her head, and said, "Mr. Su, you should call me Mississippi." Hearing that it was a woman's voice, Xuemeng Feiyu curiously raised her head and saw a beautiful woman in white. "You are?" Chapter 22-29. Xuemeng Feiyu was dumbfounded. Su Yu's child is already so old? Why does he look so much older than Su Yu? But what does that have to do with me? She said honestly, "Greetings, miss." "All right, little girl, I want you to do something for me. Once it's done, I'll give you something as compensation." Hearing that, Xuemeng Feiyu knew it wasn't anything good. She said tactfully, "Miss, my status is low, and I can't help you much." "No, I don't want your status. I want your person." "She wants my person?" Xuemeng Feiyu subconsciously placed her hand on her chest and thought to herself, could this woman be a homosexual, as the rumors say? Xuemeng Feiyu wanted to object, but Meng Qir had already shot out a domain, enveloping Xuemeng Feiyu. The pitiful Xuemeng Feiyu had come to the Pirate Alliance and been placed under a domain by two Path Masters. "What did you do to me?" Xuemeng Feiyu felt like crying at this moment. Why do they like to place domains on people? The first one was to make her obey Su Yu, but now? This is my Thousand Dreams domain. Once it's activated, your consciousness will enter an illusory dream. Later, the first man you see will automatically be replaced in your consciousness with the person you want to see the most in your dreams. Of course, the things you want to do in your dreams will also be done by your body in reality. "No, I don't want it." Xuemeng Feiyu was smart and immediately understood what it was. Her face turned pale. In Su Yu's bedroom, who would be the first person she would meet? Was there even a need to say it? "It's not up to you." Xuemeng Feiyu snapped her fingers. All of a sudden, Xuemeng Feiyu's eyes darkened. Meng Qir's domain was magical, and Xuemeng Feiyu was clearly in an illusion. But her eyes didn't show any signs of dullness. She seemed very clear-headed, and there was nothing strange about her. "Father, you must be suffocating to get the heartless iron trap. I can only use you to quench my thirst." Meng Qir smiled, then closed the door quietly and stood guard outside. Soon, Su Yu finished setting up the formation. He saw Meng Qir patrolling outside his bedroom. "Why did he go in?" Su Yu asked. The Heartless Iron Constable's gold and silver horses were extraordinary. They might even be able to break through the formation and appear beside Xuemeng Feiyu, taking her away immediately. Therefore, it was best for him to stay close to Snow Dream, Flying Rain. With a guilty conscience, Meng Qir stammered, "I can make it if I'm outside." "Fine. Inform me immediately if anything happens." Su Yu was worried about leaving Xuemeng Feiyu alone, so he pushed open the door and entered. He saw Xuemeng Feiyu's back facing him, bending over to fold the blanket. When she bent over, her buttocks curled up, outlining two smooth curves. Su Yu averted his gaze calmly, then sat down on the cushion on the ground and began meditating with his legs crossed. Not long after he closed his eyes, he suddenly smelled a fragrant breeze. When he opened his eyes, he saw that it was Xuemeng Feiyu. He did not know when she had arrived, but she was only 3 feet away from him. His face, which should have been fair, was now covered with a strange red hue. Her pair of crystal-like eyes were filled with abnormal ripples. Her breath smelled like orchids as she stared at Su Yu. Su Yu immediately recognized her form. She must have been struck by something, causing her to lose her mind. "Rookin, I am yours." As she spoke, she threw herself into Su Yu's embrace. As soon as her body entered his embrace, Su Yu immediately felt a deep heat. Lowering his head, he saw that she had already taken off her clothes. At that moment, she was like a little sheep, lying in Su Yu's embrace, asking for anything. No matter how strong Su Yu's mental fortitude was, he could not help but feel his heart waver. However, this thought had only just arisen when it was forcefully erased. This woman was too heartless. Being entangled with such a woman would hinder his cultivation. "Wake up!" Su Yu tapped a finger between her brows, using his soul energy to awaken her consciousness. However, just as he extended his finger, Shuemeng Feiyu sucked on it gently. Suyu creased his brows and was about to forcefully shake her off. All of a sudden, the spell outside shook violently. Suyu was shocked. The heartless iron catcher had indeed returned. Crack! A moment after the spell shook, a space appeared in front of Suyu, and a horse peeked its head out. The heartless iron catcher was sitting on it. She swept her gaze across and saw an extremely indecent scene. Shuemeng Feiyu was naked, lying in Suyu's embrace. As for Suyu, he extended his finger for Shuemeng Feiyu to suck on. The heartless iron catcher was expressionless. He sighed slightly. I'm a step too late. Crash! Suyu shielded Shuemeng Feiyu behind him and was about to summon the sinful sword. The heartless iron catcher turned and left. After confirming that he had left completely, Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. Kur, Xiaoya, and the others arrived one after another. Knowing that the heartless iron catcher had almost taken Shuemeng Feiyu away, Xiaoya finally made up her mind. She said, Deputy Leader Su, I'll leave the negotiation with the 6th Peerless family to you. You must obtain more resources for the upcoming Heavenly Legacy Cave Abode. Go in person? It would be very dangerous. You've just joined the Pirate Alliance, so what you lack is experience. If you can bring back more resources for the rest of the pirates to benefit, then you'll have more authority in the entire Pirate Alliance. Suyu pondered for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Golden-eyed Longyuan's condition was that Suyu could influence the overall decisions of the Pirate Alliance. The extortion was an opportunity for him to increase his authority. If he performed well enough and brought back more things, the Pirate Alliance would undoubtedly favor him even more. In the future, his suggestions would naturally be carefully considered by the Pirate Alliance. Before the negotiation, I need to make some preparations. No problem. You have a month to prepare. Back in the bedroom, Suyu looked at Shuemeng Feiyu, whose eyes were full of tears and looked extremely aggrieved. He said calmly, Don't cry anymore, or I'll really do it to you. Shuemeng Feiyu wiped away her tears immediately, but she was hating Suyu to the core. Although nothing had happened just now, her body had already been seen and touched by him, right? To Shuemeng Feiyu, this was intolerable. Get ready. I'll send you away in a month. During this period, you're not allowed to step out. Suyu sat cross-legged and stared at her, just in case the heartless iron catcher came back again. He cast a space barrier around him. In this way, Shuemeng Feiyu couldn't see what Suyu was doing inside. Suyu's heart moved, and he entered the cavern world. He wanted to ask the evil dragon about the next step of training the heavenly dragon body. However, as soon as he entered, he heard the evil dragon's cheers. The evil King Pearl has finally been refined. The evil dragon was circling a fist-sized pearl that was emitting black light, dancing up and down. His expression was filled with deep joy. Congratulations. So you took a look at the evil King Pearl. Although he didn't know what use it had, his intuition told him that it was quite extraordinary. The evil dragon immediately transformed into a human form, holding the evil King Pearl in his hand. He smiled and said, Thank you, my lord, for helping me successfully cultivate the evil King Pearl. Chapter 22:30. The evil dragon licked his lips and said excitedly, This is the evil King Pearl that was introduced in a crafting technique that I erased from the evil dragon Bible. It needs the purest evil energy in the world to be refined. Once it is refined successfully, as long as the evil King Pearl is in one's mouth, one can summon the evil king to fight. From the sounds of it, it was similar to summoning a soul and possessing a body for battle. Is it very powerful? The evil dragon smiled proudly. Of course it is. Once the evil king is possessed, one can share the evil moon ability of the evil king. The so-called evil moon ability is an extremely powerful eye technique that can copy all the attacks of others, including the realm. Hearing this, Suyu's pupil shrank. An eye technique that could even copy the realm? What kind of existence would that be? Suyu couldn't help but be tempted. My lord, this pearl only has a chance to see the light of day because of your gift. So, you should be the first to try it, so that it can once again emit the radiance hidden in the dust of history. Suyu waved his hand. You work hard to refine this item. I can't take it for myself. Seeing that Suyu didn't intend to take it for himself, the evil dragon was even more grateful. He was under Suyu's roof, so if Suyu wanted to snatch it away, there was nothing he could do. It was only because Suyu respected him as a living creature, not because he had worked hard. My lord, please don't refuse. You can return the evil king pearl to me one day when you no longer need it. After thinking for a while, Suyu said, All right, thank you. After thinking for a while, Suyu asked, Can anyone use this pearl? Of course not, the evil dragon said. Only those who have cultivated the evil dragon Bible can use it. If anyone else obtains it, it will be useless, just like how others obtain a doctrine artifact. Suyu nodded deeply. Copy the realm of others? If it was used cleverly, it would be very shocking. Then, Suyu asked about the training of the second stage of the Sky Dragon body. The evil dragon's answer was that the second stage, in addition to enlightenment, must be experienced again, similar to the impact of the power of heaven and earth. The Sky Dragon body could only continue to evolve under the impact of the powerful force. Of course, because the Sky Dragon body would become stronger the higher it went, the more powerful the power of heaven and earth would be. However, that was easier said than done. A month later, Suyu arrived at Xiaoxia's great hall as promised. There were a few other pirates in the hall. He didn't know the others, except for the Sea Wolves' pirate star lady, who he naturally knew. The latter nodded slightly and smiled in a friendly manner. Suyu responded with a faint smile. Vice Leader Su, you can introduce yourself to these people on the way. Xiaoxia was clearly not very happy. The initial plan was to appoint the two deputy chiefs, Suyu and Iron Hand, to go to the sixth unique civilization together. However, the other 9 great pirates suddenly came looking for them, hoping that the few young pirates they had recruited would go with them. Suyu was puzzled. Why did so many people suddenly appear? Moreover, they were generally quite young. Yes, leader. Suyu was puzzled. He boarded a speedboat and headed toward the place where the Wan Zong beasts appeared. After boarding the speedboat, Suyu sat alone in a corner and watched over Shuemeng Feiyu. Deputy Leader Su, thank you for your hard work. At that moment, the fragrance of a young lady drifted over from behind him. A white hand was holding a spirit wine that was rich in spiritual energy, and it was delivered to Suyu. Suyu turned his head and found that it was Star Lady. He took the spirit wine, but didn't drink it. Instead, he just smiled gently. Vice Leader Su, don't you want to ask something? For example, why did so many people suddenly appear when you were supposed to go and negotiate alone? Star Lady's eyes shone with a strange light. Suyu said, something must have happened during the month I was in seclusion, right? Correct answer. Star Lady was slightly mischievous. A rare heavenly lion broke into the territory of the 6th unique family, and many strong men were chasing it. Heavenly lion? Suyu was slightly surprised. The heavenly lion was a kind of peculiar lion born from stone lions. Some stone lions carved from special materials. After experiencing the endless power of heaven and earth and being nourished for a long time, would naturally give birth to a form of intelligence. Then, the spiritual intelligence would leave the stone lions and be named the heavenly lion. The potential of the heavenly lion was extremely shocking. It could usually grow to the level of a pathmaster or even a powerful pathmaster of a family. Once the heavenly lion appeared, it would be the target of everyone's competition. However, the heavenly lion was extremely spiritual, second only to the gold and silver horse. Only people with great potential would choose to be its master. In the eyes of the heavenly lion, those whose cultivation had reached the level of a pathmaster had already exhausted their potential. It would only choose young people from the younger generation whose strength was on par with it, and then grow together with it. Currently, many young talents from the 7 great families of the 7 unique civilizations had gone to the 6th unique family to hunt down the heavenly lion that had suddenly appeared. The Pirate Alliance, who had received the news, naturally did not want to be left behind. They wanted to take advantage of the negotiation to enter the 6th unique family to find the heavenly lion. After knowing the whole story, Suyu shrugged. He was not interested in it at all. Soon, they came to a place where the Zone beast appeared. After waiting for a few days, the Zone beast appeared, so they successfully reached the civilization near the 7 unique civilizations. Iron Hand, who was traveling with them, found Su Yu and asked, "Vice Leader Su, what are you going to do about the hostage exchange?" In fact, Iron Hand had been in the Pirate Alliance for many years, so he was very familiar with the hostage exchange. However, he just wanted to test Su Yu. He wanted to see if this young man was worthy of the leader's attention. Su Yu understood Iron Hand's intentions and said calmly, "I will personally bring her into the 6th unique family to negotiate with the family master." Iron Hand was stunned. He had thought that Su Yu would come up with a good idea. But looking at it now, how could this be an idea? It was clearly foolish. Did he want to bring Xuem Mengfiyu into the 6th unique family and then come back? The 6th unique family would try everything to get the hostages back, wouldn't they? Even if Su Yu and the others threatened them with the lives of the hostages, how could they escape the pursuit of the 6th unique family? The most correct way would be to ask for the treasures first, then send a message to the 6th unique family and ask them to go to a certain place to retrieve the hostages. If Su Yu were to barge in without any strategy, he would wipe out all of them. Iron Hand was extremely disappointed in Su Yu. He really did not understand how he had managed to capture the greedy Wolf King and Xue Mengfiyu. It was simply unbelievable. How could he know that the heartless Iron Constable had already intervened in this matter? If Xue Mengfiyu was more than 1,000 feet away from Su Yu, the heartless Iron Constable might suddenly appear and successfully capture her. Therefore, bringing her with him was the safest and most reliable method. "Let's go and negotiate with the 6th unique family." Iron Hand shouted, "Vice Leader Su, please forgive us for not being able to take the risk with you." Chapter 22:31. In fact, even if he didn't say it, none of the young heroes would be willing to go with Su Yu. As long as they weren't stupid, they would understand how ignorant Su Yu was to bring hostages with him to negotiate. Su Yu glanced at them indifferently and said, "I think it's better if you don't stay here." However, no one was willing to believe him. The young elites who were present were extremely dissatisfied with Su Yu, whose reputation was like the sun in the sky. At this moment, they would not agree with his stupid decision. "I'll go with you." Star Lady came out from the crowd and said. She winked at the people behind her and said, "I think it's better for you to listen to Deputy Leader Su." After saying that, she left with Su Yu and went directly to the 6th Peerless family. The group of people stayed where they were. "Deputy Leader Tai, what should we do about the capture of the Tianjua Lion?" Stone Sword from the Sea Wolves Pirates asked with a frown. Their original intention was to get the 7 civilizations to allow them to enter and capture the Tianjua Lion through negotiation. However, because of Su Yu's arbitrary decision, all their plans were in vain. Iron Hand pondered and said, "There is no other way. We can only sneak in. Anyway, the 6th Peerless family is vast. As long as you don't deliberately show your tracks, you won't be recognized." In fact, many young heroes also planned to sneak in. However, after getting Iron Hand's affirmation, they became more confident. "Get ready. Once you are ready, we can go." Hunting the Tianjua Lion was not an easy task. It was almost impossible to accomplish it alone. At least a small number of people had to form a team to have a chance. Therefore, all the people present immediately formed a team. Half a day later, everything was ready. When they were about to set off, they suddenly found a dark cloud outside the civilization. When they got closer, they found that it was not a dark cloud, but countless battleships. There were thousands of battleships. Each battleship had a giant cannon that was full of energy, aiming at everyone in the civilization. Are we surrounded by the battleships of the 7 civilizations? How is it possible? Did they foresee that we would come? At this time, a strong man was floating on a slightly larger battleship with his hands behind his back. His body was as strong as a tower, and he sneered. "I knew that you greedy pirates would be attracted by the Tianjua Lion. I've been waiting for you for a long time." Hearing this, Iron Hand's heart skipped a beat, as if he had missed a beat. He finally understood why Su Yu had advised them to leave this place as soon as possible before leaving. Because at that time, so you had already anticipated that the enemy might have anticipated his actions and was patrolling all the places where the Wan Zone beasts appear in the vicinity. Surrender or die. The muscular man grinned, revealing a cold smile. Iron Hand felt a chill in his heart. Under the indiscriminate bombardment of 1,000 cannons, not a single person present would be able to survive. However, if he fell into the hands of the sixth peerless family, he would still have no way out. The only difference was whether he would die sooner or later. Don't fight, we surrender. Iron Hand made a wise decision. He led the young elites to raise their hands and surrender. It was a pity that they came to hunt the heaven-scorching lion, but in the end, they didn't even see the lion's shadow before they were hunted by someone else. Bring them all back. The burly man laughed mischievously. He suppressed the captives and returned with a full load. The sixth peerless family. On a certain floating island, there were several splendid palaces. Heartless Iron Arrester, you mean? In one of the palaces, there were 3 people sitting. One of them was a white-clothed woman with a veil covering her face. It was the Heartless Iron Arrester. Of the other 2, one was middle-aged, but he was still shockingly handsome. His facial features were somewhat similar to Xuan Meng Feiyu's. He was the master of the sixth peerless family, Mie Zheng. The other was a fair-skinned and handsome young man in luxurious clothes. He held a purple sword in his hand, and his temperament was extraordinary. He looked at the Heartless Iron Arrester with concern and said, "Lord Iron Arrester, please state clearly whether Feiyu's rescue was successful." The Heartless Iron Arrester said calmly, "You see that I am empty-handed. Do you still need to ask?" She had never left, lingering near Xuan Meng Feiyu, looking for an opportunity to take her away. However, Suyu was too vigilant. For the past month, he had never left her side. He did not give her any chance to attack. Knowing that they were going to bring Xuan Meng Feiyu back to extort money, the Heartless Iron Arrester knew that she could not succeed. So, she had rushed back an hour earlier. How could this be? The Heartless Iron Arrester has never failed. Miezheng still could not believe it. Even a master of a 7-star civilization could not stop the Heartless Iron Arrester from taking someone away. In the Pirate Alliance, the strongest person was probably Xie Xiaoye. Could her strength be a threat to the Heartless Iron Arrester? The Heartless Iron Arrester's expression was calm, as if she was convinced. There is an expert in the Pirate Alliance. Be in terms of wisdom, martial arts, or scheming, he is not inferior to me. As long as he is here, I cannot save Xuan Meng Feiyu. Hearing this, Mie Zheng frowned deeply. Is it Xie Xiaoye? No. The Heartless Iron Arrester shook her head lightly. The young man could not sit still. Who is he? In the Pirate Alliance, only Xie Xiaoye is comparable to you in martial arts, but she should not be able to stop you. The Heartless Iron Arrester shook her head calmly. I cannot say. Why? The young man raised his eyebrows. The Heartless Iron Arrester looked at the teacup on the table, slightly absent-minded. Because he let me go. Hearing this, Mie Zheng and the young man sucked in a breath. That person's martial arts were actually superior to the Heartless Iron Arrester's. The young man was indignant. So what if he saved you? He is a pirate, and everyone has the right to kill him. No. The Heartless Iron Arrester's eyes were deep and profound. I am thinking that he is not a real pirate, but a spy sent by some aristocratic family. At first, the Heartless Iron Arrester also thought that Suyu had violated her. However, after thinking about it carefully, if Suyu wanted to violate her, why did he not do it in his own bedroom, but in a remote place? Was it to make it easier for her to escape? Therefore, she was very sure of her guess. Spy? Which aristocratic family? The young man's eyes flickered slightly. The Heartless Iron Arrester said calmly, after looking up a lot of information, I can already confirm which aristocratic family he comes from. However, he let me go, and I will help him keep this a secret. The young man's eyes were filled with deep anger. He did not care about the spy. Anyone who dared to obstruct him from saving Xuan Meng Feiyu was his enemy. Looking at the young man, the Heartless Iron Arrester said, Also, I have a piece of news for you. Without another word, she placed a piece of jade on the table, then stood up and cupped her fists at the young man. Tell your father that the mission has failed. I will return this favor next time." When she finished speaking, she moved and disappeared. The young man had a bad premonition, so he crushed the jade piece. An image was projected into the air. He saw a naked Xuan Meng Feiyu, her eyes filled with love as she nestled in a man's embrace. She was even sucking the man's finger in pleasure. Witnessing such a scene, the young man's eyes widened, and his whole body trembled uncontrollably. Chapter 22:32. Flying Rain. He clenched his fists tightly, the muscles on his face constantly twitching, the muscles on his cheeks squirming up and down. It could be seen that he was gnashing his teeth. The scene ended there, and there was no follow-up. However, Feiyu had already reached that stage with that man. Was there any need to say what would happen next? Thinking of this, the young man could not restrain his anger. It was as if there was a ball of fire burning in his chest. However, he was quite shrewd and did not say anything more. Mie Zheng's face was filled with disappointment, and his eyes dimmed. Even though he had expected it, he still found it hard to accept that it had actually happened. Would such a beautiful person like his daughter end up in the hands of the Pirate Alliance? He looked at the young man and said, "Young Master Xia, I've troubled you." Although he couldn't save his daughter, he was still grateful for the help of the 7th Peerless family. The young man was none other than Xia Rukin. After a brief moment of anger, he regained his composure and said, "It's fine." Seeing this, Mie Zheng inwardly praised him. Even though he was in so much pain, he was still able to regain his composure in just a few breaths. As expected of Xia Yi An's son, just this temperament alone was enough to ensure that he would have unparalleled achievements in the future. At the same time, her heart dimmed. Her daughter had lost her innocence, so it was impossible for Xia Rukin to marry her, right? Just like that, a proud son of heaven had missed the chance to enter the 6th great family. "Uncle, I will take my leave and return to the 7th Peerless clan." Mie Zheng replied, "Very well. The pirates are here for the hostages. I am unable to attend to young Master Xia personally. My apologies." Xia Rukin nodded and left with a complicated expression. Mie Zheng sighed deeply. After a long silence, he slowly raised his head, his eyes filled with determination. "If any pirates inform us that they are here to negotiate, inform me immediately," Mie Zheng said. Regardless of whether his daughter was still innocent or not, she was still his most beloved daughter. He had to be redeemed. At that time, Su Yu and the Star Maiden brought Xuan Meng Feiyu with them and descended on a certain place in the 6th Peerless family. This place was quite a distance from the prince's mansion. The reason he came here was naturally to arrange an escape route in advance. Otherwise, would he really swagger into the mansion to exchange hostages? Although he was confident in his own strength, he was not stupid to the point of being conceited. After several days of gathering information, Su Yu found a few places where traces of the Wanzhong beast would appear in the near future. Shua. One day, the 3 of them arrived at the peak of a cloud. According to the intelligence analysis, someone had seen the Wanzhong beast here before, and the time interval was a month. Calculating carefully, in another 3 days, it would be a month. At that time, the Wanzhong beast should appear here. Once he obtained the resources, he could use the 10,000 sec beast to leave in time. Let's head to the next place to confirm. Su Yu was speaking when he suddenly saw a crowd of people flying over from the horizon. There were close to 1,000 people. They formed groups and chased crazily, using all types of magical treasures and talismans to increase their speed. Seeing that their cultivations weren't high, not even at the level of a pathmaster, Su Yu didn't leave immediately. Soon, when they got close, Su Yu and the other 2 could clearly see what they were chasing. It was actually chasing after a stone lion covered in rust. The stone lion was very ferocious. From time to time, it would turn its head and roar at them. The group of young elites was filled with excitement and joy as they chased after it. The Star Lady recognized it immediately. Her eyes flashed with excitement. "It's a sky lion." Xuanmeng Feiyu was also shocked. They had just returned, and they ran into the sky lion that was being chased. Looking at the sky lion running in their direction, Xuanmeng Feiyu's heart was beating wildly. This was a rumored, innate spiritual beast that could grow to the level of a family master. If she could make it recognize her as its master, it would mean that she would have an extremely powerful pet in the future. Let's go. It's boring, Suyu said calmly. In the eyes of ordinary people, the sky lion was indeed precious. However, to Suyu, it was worthless. It would take at least tens of thousands of years for him to grow to the level of a pathmaster, right? In such a long time, Suyu didn't even know which level his cultivation had broken through. Moreover, Suyu now had the sword technique to fight with a pathmaster, who was at the level of a family master. Moreover, with the continuous cultivation of the heavenly dragon body, it would sooner or later surpass the level of a pathmaster. Why would he need to raise a sky lion with limited potential? Boring? Xuemeng Feiyu thought she had heard it wrong. Even a family master would want to get the sky lion, right? Star Maiden was quite interested in beating Suyu up. Others might think that Suyu was being conceited, but to Star Maiden, Suyu was just trying to show his calmness. However, Suyu's position was too high, so people thought that he was being conceited. However, the strange thing was, when the Sky Lion saw Suyu and the others, it was about to turn around and run in another direction. However, it seemed to have discovered something. With a look of surprise in its eyes, it sped up its pace and ran towards them. Finally, before Suyu and the others left, it rushed over and lay in front of Suyu. It kept rolling its body and sticking out its tongue, looking at Suyu with a pair of eager eyes. The Sky Lion was very intelligent, so it could identify the potential of others. It looked down on the 7 unique civilizations' heaven rulers who were chasing after it. However, when it saw Suyu's amazing potential. No, it was not amazing, but nature-defying. Therefore, such a proud spiritual creature like the Sky Lion ran to Suyu and pretended to be obedient, trying to please him, hoping that he would accept it. This scene made Xuemeng Feiyu's eyes pop out. Even the Star Lady covered her mouth and exclaimed in disbelief. This was not the first time she had heard about the pride of the Sky Lion. Even if it met a master it liked, it would only consider signing a contract and becoming its pet if the master begged it nicely. Moreover, even if it became a pet, it would still be quite proud. Its master might not be able to command it every time. It was said that there was once a heaven ruler who had a Sky Lion. When it was fighting against an enemy, its master was fighting to the death, while it played leisurely at the side. No matter how its master called out to it, it was too proud and refused to fight. In the end, it watched its master being beaten to death and left. She had never heard of a Sky Lion trying to please its master. Except now. Xuemeng Feiyu was also shocked. Was Suyu's potential very strong? How strong could a lowly pirate like him be? Xuemeng Feiyu did not want to believe this. However, she had to believe it. The Sky Lion begged him to accept it as a pet. This was like the gold and silver horse begging Wuxin to be its master. Suyu furrowed his brows. Don't block the way, get lost. He kicked the sky-severing lion, who was begging for shelter, and sent it rolling on the ground. He couldn't be bothered to accept such a useless spiritual pet. The veins on Star Maiden's forehead were throbbing. She didn't know why, but she had a strong urge to beat someone up. The divine pet, which all the geniuses in the world yearned for, had taken the initiative to acknowledge Suyu as its master, yet he had kicked it away in disdain. Star Maiden felt that this kick was also a kick to her own face. It was really a case of comparing goods to goods and people to death. Xuemeng Feiyu's eyes widened. How could they treat a super divine beast like this? She couldn't help but feel sorry for the Tianjua lion. Coincidentally, a group of heaven's favorites caught up and watched as their sky lions were kicked away. They were shocked and felt like their hearts were bleeding. Divine beasts were meant to be protected, not kicked. However, to them, the sky-severing lion was like a dog. After being kicked away, it didn't get angry. Instead, it ran toward Suyu again, trying to please him while pressing its tail. It looked like it wanted to lick Suyu's toes. However, Suyu was slightly displeased. Don't make things difficult for me. With your potential, you are useless to me. Find another master. After saying that, he was about to walk away. However, the sky-severing lion pounced on him and hugged his thigh. It kept rubbing against his thigh and making pleading sounds. Humph! Suyu's eyes turned cold. He kicked the sky-severing lion with his right leg and sent it flying. It rolled on the ground for a few times and finally stopped when its body was covered with mud. Stop pestering me, or I will skin you and use you to make soup. Suyu turned around and left. He walked towards the next destination with a guilty conscience. Star Maiden and Xuan Mengfiu left with Suyu reluctantly. The sky-severing lion was left behind, wiping its tears pitifully. Seeing this, many young geniuses were heartbroken. How could anyone bully a divine beast like this? They couldn't wait to catch up with Suyu and beat him up. A beautiful young woman with great potential came forward with a comforting smile. She said, "Sky-severing lion, don't be sad. Come with me, okay? I will treat you well." However, the sky-severing lion suddenly raised its head. In his eyes, there was a human-like disdain that he didn't bother to hide. Moreover, it even spoke in the human language. It said disdainfully, "A bunch of salted fish." After saying that, his forelegs kicked out, and he fled without a trace. The young woman was left behind with a stiff and embarrassed look. Many young geniuses were also quite annoyed. How could he call them salted fish? What was more annoying was that the sky-severing lion had obviously gone to chase after Suyu. It would rather be used by Suyu, a fresh fish, than be treated as a treasure by a group of salted fish. How infuriating! However, even though the sky-severing lion's attitude was so bad, they still had hope and wanted to keep the sky-severing lion as their own. Suyu systematically figured out the locations of several Wanzhong beasts. Finally, he set off in the direction of the Wang Mansion. 2 days later, in the Wang Mansion, Miezheng was not in the mood to meditate. According to the Wuxin Iron Arrester, the pirates who came to negotiate should have already arrived nearby. However, several days had passed, so why hadn't they sent a notice of negotiation? Report: there are people outside the mansion who claim to be from the Pirate Alliance. They have brought the young lady here. Is this true? Miezheng couldn't believe it. Aren't they afraid that they won't be able to get away if they bring a hostage here? With a thought, he immediately appeared outside the mansion in a flash. What he saw was the man who was having sex with his daughter and a young woman with a pink lotus mark on her forehead. Finally, there was his daughter, who looked nervous. Chapter 22:33. Suyu looked around at the crowd. "Are you going to negotiate here? Shall we enter the mansion?" Miezheng asked. "Sure." Miezheng was in disbelief. Did these two think they could come out alive after entering his mansion? However, this was exactly what he wanted, so why not? "Please come in." Under his arrangement, they sat opposite each other in the guest hall. Miezheng also summoned the 6th Peerless Family's Pathmasters. There were a total of 12 Pathmasters. They did not give off any aura of a Pathmaster, but just by standing there, they gave off a suffocating feeling. Even a pirate leader would feel pressured if he came to negotiate in person. However, Suyu's face was calm, without any sign of nervousness. He said, "I've brought the hostage. As the heir of the 6th Peerless Family, how much do you think she's worth?" Miezheng looked at his daughter with a meaningful look. For the sake of his daughter's safety, Miezheng did not act rashly. After thinking for a moment, he said sincerely, "Name your price." Suyu put down his teacup, raised his eyes, and said calmly, "Half of the 6th Peerless Family's treasury." From its inception until now, the treasuries of the 6th Peerless Family had accumulated an unimaginable amount of resources. Half of it was probably several times more than the entire Pirate Alliance combined. With those resources, Suyu could totally build another Pirate Alliance. "Half?" Miezheng laughed. "Are you joking? If they lost half of their treasury, the 6th Peerless Family would be greatly weakened. Although it would not be a serious blow, their development would be much slower than the other 6 great families." "Of course not," Suyu said calmly. "We're not close, so of course I wouldn't joke with you." "Yeah," Zheng shook his head. "Half is too much. Even if you kill my daughter in front of me, I won't give it to you." He did not understand why this stupid pirate, who had sent a hostage to his mansion, would dare to ask for half of the resources. Surely no one would agree to such a ridiculous request. so you did not expect them to agree. The condition of expulsion was so high that it was naturally used for bargaining. I can give you 1/10,000th at most. Miezheng said. Su Yu shook his head. Are you trying to get rid of a beggar? Half. All right, 1,000th, Miezheng said. Half. Su Yu was unwavering. 1%. No more. Miezheng said. This was the bottom line that Xie Xiaoye had given him before coming. As long as he could achieve that, the mission would be completed successfully. However, if Su Yu wanted to gain the trust and favor of the many pirates, it was naturally not enough to rely on just this. I said half. 2%. Half. Both sides kept haggling. Finally, when it reached 5%, Miezheng insisted on not increasing it. Su Yu was quite satisfied. 5 times more than the bottom line was quite good. Such a large amount of resources was comparable to the accumulation of one of the top 10 pirates. Deal, Su Yu said calmly. Miezheng was a little tired. He looked at the young man in front of him. To be honest, if it wasn't because of his position, he really admired this kind of young man. He was able to bargain with the 12 Dao Lords without batting an eyelid. Just this calmness alone was not inferior to any of the heirs of the 7 absolute aristocratic families. Why would such a person become a pirate? What a pity. The most unfortunate thing was that he was reckless and had tainted his own daughter. If he didn't, then he would consider recruiting him and letting him join the 6th-rank clan. However, violating his daughter was an unforgivable crime. A murderous intent lingered in Miezheng's heart. But on the surface, there was nothing strange. All right, Miezheng said. Now that the bargaining chips had been negotiated, the next step was the issue of the transaction. Now, I will transfer the resources from your treasury, Su Yu said. 3 days later, I will send a message to you and ask you to go to a certain place to take the people away. Miezheng was not surprised. He said, all right, please come with me to the treasury. Since they were transferring resources, Su Yu naturally had to keep an eye on it. Not long after, the 3 of them arrived before an extremely heavily guarded treasure vault. Miezheng secretly signaled to the Dao Lords to take advantage of the opportunity to attack. There was a powerful space formation in the treasury. When the treasury's door was opened, it would automatically activate and imprison everyone who did not have the bloodline of the 6th-rank clan. In other words, Su Yu and the Star Lady would be trapped in the space immediately. They would take advantage of the opportunity to rescue Xuan Meng Feiyu, while the other group would capture Su Yu and the Star Lady alive. They would then search their souls to see if they had done anything to Xuan Meng Feiyu. The few of them exchanged glances and understood what to do. Miezheng pointed at one of the activation formations on the treasury and prepared to carry out his plan. However, right at that moment, a huge commotion was heard outside the mansion. At the same time, a stone lion covered in rust actually ran in a panic and bumped its head against the door of the treasury. It cried out in pain and bounced back from the treasury's door. Everyone was stunned. There were many experts secretly guarding the mansion. How could something break in such a heavily guarded place like the treasury? However, when they took a closer look, the many Dao Lords, including Miezheng, were all shocked. A Tianjua lion? Miezheng was stunned for a moment. Then his eyes lit up. If he could get his hands on a Tianjua lion and raise it to maturity, it would be equivalent to having a powerful combat power that was no less than his own. He had already sent the young elites of his clan to capture it. He did not expect that it would run into the 6th-ranked clan on its own. It was really God's will. Ah! Miezheng almost cried out in surprise when the Tianjua lion shook its head and ran up to Su Yu. It wagged its tail pitifully, as if it was begging Su Yu to take it in. They were all dumbfounded by the scene. How could a proud Tianjua lion beg someone to take it in? It's impossible. It's impossible. However, the truth was right in front of them. However, what shocked them once again was that Su Yu kicked him away and said, "Aren't you afraid that I'll cook you and eat you?" Hearing this, the Tianjua lion did not give up. It ran over again and begged Su Yu to take it in. When Miezheng and the others came back to their senses, they looked at Su Yu in shock. How powerful was Su Yu's potential if the Tianjua lion was so eager to recognize him as its master? He was probably more powerful than any of the heirs of the 7 unique civilizations. At least, if Xiaorukin was here, the Tianjua lion would never beg him like this. Miezheng's mind was racing. In just a short moment, countless thoughts appeared in his mind. Finally, a subtle change appeared in his eyes. Suyu gave the Tianjua lion a warning look and said, "Miezheng's family master, please continue." Miezheng nodded with a smile and tapped on the treasury's door again. Therefore, when the treasury's door opened, nothing happened. The few path masters who were waiting for an opportunity were startled, but they did not act rashly. What's going on? Did the space imprisonment formation fail? They secretly transmitted messages to Miezheng, but they did not receive any reply. After opening the treasury, Miezheng took out 10 storage rings and started filling them up. Soon, 5 storage rings were filled up. However, Miezheng had no intention of stopping. He continued to fill up the 6th storage ring. The few path masters hurriedly transmitted messages to him. "Family master, it's enough. It's enough." However, Miezheng continued to fill them up. After the 6th storage ring, he went on to fill up the 7th. After the 7th, he went on to fill up the 8th. In the end, he only stopped when he had filled up all 10 storage rings. Such a large amount of resources was 1/10 of what the 6th Peerless family had. This was twice as much as what they had agreed on. "Take the chips," Miezheng said. So you did not accept it. He asked, "What do you mean by killing the Zheng family master?" The chips that they had agreed on had suddenly been doubled. So you did not think that it would be easy to get the chips that were doubled. "Hee, I don't mean anything. I just hope that one day, when the 6th Peerless family needs you, you can lend us a hand." Miezheng laughed. Suyu's eyes lit up. He understood what Miezheng meant. He probably realized that Suyu had amazing potential, so he wanted to help him in his hour of need. When Suyu became successful one day, he could return the favor to the 6th Peerless family. After thinking for a while, Suyu took the 10 storage rings and said, "I can agree to help as long as it's within my capabilities. It's a deal." Miezheng smiled. After getting the chips, Suyu said, "According to our previous agreement, after I leave, I will inform you to go to a place to look for Xuan Mengfeiyu." Sure. As such, Suyu did not encounter any obstruction and successfully left the mansion. The Celestial Lion did not give up, and he followed him happily. After leaving the mansion, the Star Lady covered her mouth and chuckled. "I was really worried that Miezheng would make you his son-in-law." She was smart, so she understood Miezheng's intention. If the conditions allowed it, she had no doubt that Miezheng would make Suyu his son-in-law. Hearing this, Xuan Mengfeiyu looked indifferent. She did not think it was funny. In her heart, the only one who was worthy of her was Xia Yan's son, Xiaorukin. Who else was qualified to marry her? Are you not convinced? The Star Lady saw the disdain in Xuan Mengfeiyu's eyes. Xuan Mengfeiyu said no. "However, my heart belongs to someone else, and I will only love you, Brother Rukin." Xiaorukin? The Star Lady did not care. Was Xiaorukin more outstanding than Su Rushu? Would the Celestial Lion beg Xiaorukin to become his pet? Would it? Su did not care who Xuan Mengfeiyu liked, so he said calmly, "Let's go." According to the plan, Suyu was going to put Xuan Mengfeiyu in the opposite direction so that he could distract the people from the 6th Peerless family. However, when they had just left the city where the mansion was located and reached the outskirts, 3 powerful auras quickly caught up with them. 2 of the auras had reached the Pathmaster level, while the last one was a half-step Pathmaster, but his aura was not weaker than the other 2. The most surprising thing was that he was very young. Brother Rukin? Xuan Mengfeiyu was pleasantly surprised. She was about to walk over and throw herself into his arms, but Suyu put his hand on her shoulder and said calmly, "Don't go over." Chapter 2234. Xuan Mengfeiyu realized that she was still a hostage and could not act on her own. She looked at Suyu with hatred and returned to his side silently. "I'm not trying to stop you from reuniting with your lover. I'm trying to save your life," Suyu said calmly. Xuan Mengfeiyu was expressionless, but she was laughing coldly in her heart. He had said it the other way around. Wasn't Suyu the one who was really threatening her life? Xiaorukin looked at Suyu calmly. "It seems like you already know why I'm here. If that's the case, there's no need to talk nonsense." Swoosh. The 2 Dao Lords beside him suddenly attacked. Xueming Fiyu quietly retreated. She thought to herself that Su Yu was definitely going to die, but she could not be implicated. However, Xueming Fiyu was shocked and confused to find out that the two Pathmasters were not attacking Su Yu, but her. Both of them activated their domains at the same time, their bodies emitting a murderous aura. This was not some kind of act. They really wanted to kill her. Back off! Su Yu rushed over and used his heavenly dragon body to forcefully disperse the two deadly domains. With the strength of his body, it was difficult for him to disperse the two domains. Hence, he felt a slight pain in his arm. Xueming Fiyu stared at Xia Rukin in disbelief. Why, Brother Rukin, why are you doing this to me? Xia Rukin looked at Su Yu in surprise. He raised his eyebrows and shouted, Don't call me that. Dirty. Dirty? The intelligent Xueming Fiyu immediately understood what was going on. She hurriedly said, Brother Rukin, don't misunderstand me. Nothing happened between us. Shut up. Even talking to you now makes me sick. Xia Rukin's words were extremely ruthless. Xueming Fiyu had risked her life to steal the greedy Wolf King's fate for him. In the end, he did not even want to hear an explanation. Xueming Fiyu's lips twitched. She stopped explaining and asked, Then, why do you want to kill me? Won't it be fine if you don't see me again? She felt that Xia Rukin's hatred was born from love. If that was the case, she would feel a little better. However, Xia Rukin did not answer her. He only said, Kill. He took out a strange weapon that looked like a hook and joined the hunt for Xueming Fiyu. Xueming Fiyu laughed bitterly and helplessly. She never thought that everything between her and Xia Rukin would be completely destroyed because of an accident. Let's go. While she was still in a daze, Su Yu grabbed her and dashed into the distance. If he were to fight one down master alone, he might have a chance of winning, but if he were to face two down masters, it would be quite difficult. Furthermore, Xia Rukin, who was not inferior to the down master, was in great danger. Therefore, the best course of action was to escape. The Star Lady also had a grave expression. The pink lotus mark between her eyebrows suddenly shone with a pink light. A moment later, a materialized lotus the size of a wash basin appeared beneath Star Lady's feet. She stretched out her hand and said, Come up. Su Yu held her hand and jumped onto the lotus. The 9 lotus rice cores on the lotus sprayed out a large amount of pink mist. Following that, the lotus flower erupted with an incomparably shocking speed. In the time it took for a breath, it had traveled hundreds of millions of miles. His speed was even more astonishing than a Tao Lord's. Seeing that they had shaken off Xia Rukin and the other two, the Star Lady's brows relaxed slightly. She looked at Xueming Fiyu and sighed. What a troublesome person. I can't return him, but I can't just leave him like that. She also understood why Xia Rukin was so determined to kill Xueming Fiyu. Why? Why did he do this to me? Haven't I done enough for him? Xueming Fiyu was on the verge of tears. The Star Lady sighed faintly. It has nothing to do with how much you've done. He just wanted to kill you to achieve his goal. Xueming Fiyu was startled. What goal? She still thought that Xia Rukin's hatred was born out of love. What will happen if you die? The Star Lady asked. Xueming Fiyu thought for a moment. She was still a hostage. If she died, everyone would think that the Pirate Alliance had gone back on their word and killed the hostage after receiving the ransom. At that time, the 6th Peerless family and the Pirate Alliance would be at each other's throats. With the appearance of the Heavenly Legacy Cavern, the pressure on the 7th Peerless family would be greatly reduced if the two great influences fought to the death inside. Xueming Fiyu's heart turned cold. Xia Rukin didn't hate her because of love. He was only thinking of ways to exploit Xueming Fiyu's value. She didn't want to believe that the man she had taken a fancy to could be so cruel and unscrupulous. However, he was going to do it himself. What else was there to doubt? Deputy Leader Su. How should we deal with her? The Star Lady felt that this was a thorny problem. Su Yu said in a low voice, We can only take her away from the 7 unique civilizations. When it's safe, we can ask Mie Zheng to come and get her. Yes, that's the only way. As the Star Lady spoke, she suddenly looked behind her, and her pupils constricted slightly. In the distant horizon, Three imposing figures were riding on a warship that was moving at a strange speed, breaking through the wind and approaching. The Heavenly Legacy warship? The Star Lady looked surprised. There were only a few Heavenly Legacy warships left in the world, and most of them were in the 7 unique civilizations. As the heir, Xiao Rukin carried one with him. I have to try my best to escape. The Star Lady instilled the power of desolation into the lotus under her feet, and the lotus suddenly soared at twice the speed. In this way, the distance between them increased again. However, the other party also sped up, and the distance between them was narrowing little by little. If this went on, the Star Lady would catch up with him sooner or later. Moreover, the Star Lady's power of desolation was consumed rapidly, and she wouldn't last long. Right at that moment, the Heavenly Lion, who had also jumped onto the lotus, tugged at Su Yu's trousers with its claws. When Su Yu looked down, the Heavenly Lion pointed in a direction. Is there anything in that direction? Su Yu asked suspiciously. The Heavenly Lion pointed at itself, and then in that direction. Su Yu didn't understand what it meant, but the Star Lady seemed to understand the beast language very well. She said, "It said that there's a place where it was born." Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. The place where the Heavenly Lion was born had always been a mysterious place that was rarely visited by humans. Moreover, there was usually a strong power of the world in the vicinity. Follow the direction it is pointing. The Star Lady nodded lightly and moved quickly on the lotus. A few days later, when Xiao Rukin and the other two were about to catch up, they came to a misty place. Seeing this place, the Star Lady's expression became more serious. Su Yu also frowned deeply. The mist in front of them was silvery white. It looked like mist, but in fact, it was a group of very small insects. These insects were called silver soul insects, and it was said that they were formed by soul fragments. Once they came into contact with a person's body, they would drill into the person's body and integrate into the person's soul. After that, the person who was integrated into the insect soul would be confused. If it was light, he would be delirious, and if it was serious, his soul would be replaced. Usually, when people encountered one, they would have to take a detour. There were more than one or two in front of them. It was simply endless. So you had heard of the dangerous name of this place. It was called the Silver Soul Void Ocean. It was known as the most dangerous place in the 7 unique civilizations. There was no other. Chapter 2235. Even the masters of the 7 great families would never enter the Silver Soul Void Ocean without permission. As strong as they were, they had no confidence that they could come back alive without being affected. You want us to enter the Silver Soul Void Ocean? Su Yu stared at the Tianjua lion and couldn't help but doubt its intentions. This place was a dead end, and there was no way out. Even if they wanted to escape in another direction, it was too late. Xiao Rukin and the other two were about to catch up. The Tianjua lion raised its right paw and pointed inside. Su Yu's forehead was throbbing. He was about to say something when the Tianjua lion swaggered forward and let out a loud roar towards the Silver Soul Void Ocean. Then, a strange scene appeared. The sea of silver fog in front of them parted to form a 30-foot wide path. The path led straight to the deepest part of the Silver Soul Void Ocean. Su Yu was shocked by the scene, and he pondered to himself. He had never heard that the Tianjua lion could control the Silver Soul Void Ocean. After thinking for a while, Su Yu asked, "Were you born in there?" The Sky Desolate lion was usually born in a place with few people. The entire 7 absolute civilization had experienced the era of the Sky Legacy Great Emperor, and then a long period of war. Finally, under the rule of the 7 absolute families, it had lasted for half an era. With such a long period of time, there were only a few places in the civilization that no one had ever been to. Therefore, when Su Yu learned that a Tianjua lion was born in the 7 unique civilizations, he had his doubts. Now it seemed that the Tianjua lion really did come from the Silver Soul Void Ocean. The Tianjua lion nodded its head, then proudly led the way into the Silver Soul Void Ocean. Should we follow them in? The Star Lady was a little fearful as she looked at the endless silver soul worms and asked. Su Yu said, "Do we have a choice?" Xiao Rukin's powerful aura was closing in on them. He stepped into it, followed by Star Maiden and Xuemeng Fiu. After they entered, the cracked path slowly closed up. When Xiaorukin and the other two arrived, they were faced with the daunting silver soul void ocean. Did they escape inside? Xiaorukin looked around in bewilderment. He followed the aura of the three and finally reached this place. One of the path masters closed his eyes, and a vague image of an eye appeared above his head. The image of the sky, severing lion, leading the three of them, and was reflected in the eye. This person's eye sorcery was somewhat similar to that of the golden-eyed playboy, allowing him to see the past. Xiaorukin's eyes were cold. One move behind, a sky-severing lion came to disturb us. What plans does the young master have? The two Dao lords asked. Without saying a word, Xiaorukin took out an inkstone and ground the ink on the spot. The Dao lords' eyelids twitched when they saw the inkstone. This inkstone was said to have been used by the Sky Legacy Emperor himself and contained the Sky Legacy Emperor's domain. Once it was activated, no one would be able to stop it. Even a powerhouse at the level of family head could die. The young lord had always regarded this item as a life-saving trump card and had never used it easily. Now that he took it out, his killing intent could be seen clearly. If the three of them didn't die and news of what happened today spread, the seventh peerless family would be in big trouble. Set up the formation. The day they come out will be the day they die, without a burial. Xiaorukin sat down cross-legged and lightly said. The two Dao lords nodded and immediately began to set up a formation nearby. As soon as Su Yu and the others came out of the Silver Soul Void Sea, the formation would be able to sense their direction. At that time, Su Yu and the other two followed the sky, severing lion into the depths of the Silver Soul Void Sea. Along the way, Su Yu saw many collapsed ruins. Many of the ruins had even decayed into dust, becoming the nests of the Silver Soul Worms. There were so many ruins that they stretched out endlessly. It was obvious that this was a city. There is a city in the Silver Soul Void Sea. I've never heard of it. The Star Maiden was amazed. History had never recorded that the Silver Soul Void Sea used to be a city, so he was deeply surprised. The Silver Soul Void Sea had existed during the era of the Sky Legacy Emperor. In other words, this place was probably a city during the era of the Sky Legacy Emperor. Moreover, it was a very secretive city. There was no record of it in history. As they continued to walk, they realized that the scale of the city was shockingly huge. It was not inferior to the central city where the mansion of a family was located. Even during the era of the Sky Legacy Emperor, a city of such scale was extremely rare. Why was there no record of it in history? 10 days later, a rather shocking scene was reflected in front of Su Yu and the other two. Beneath their feet was a stretch of ruins. However, in front of their feet, there was a complete street and houses. Everything looked brand new, without any trace of time. What was even more shocking was that there was a sea of people inside. There was an endless stream of carriages and voices, with their feet as the boundary. Behind them was a stretch of deathly, silent ruins, and in front of them was a world full of vitality. The two were extremely conflicting and presented in a very unharmonious manner. Xuemeng Feiyu covered her red lips in shock. How could there be living creatures in the Silver Soul Void Sea? How could these cities have been preserved so perfectly after such a long period of history? She could not understand the incredible scene in front of her, because this is not a real scene. The Star Maiden's bright eyes were filled with brilliance. Suyu agreed with her. There was no way a complete, independent world could exist in such a lifeless world. At that moment, the sky-severing lion suddenly roared. The bustling world in front of them suddenly dispersed like a gust of wind. A real scene appeared in front of them. What they saw was still desolate. On an abandoned ancient tower that rose from the ground, a slug-like creature was lying. Its whole body was 10,000 feet long, and its whole body was wet and sticky. It was also surrounded by a faintly discernible strange mist, which made its body look flickering. The most unique thing about it was that there was a giant red bead on its head. It was as big as a palace. Inside the bead, streaks of dark red light slowly faded away. Seeing this thing, the Star Maiden and Xuemeng Feiyu were confused. They thought they had seen a lot, but they had never seen such a creature. Only Suyu cried out in surprise, "Mirage Dragon?" He had seen it in the memory of the human demon. This was the Mirage Dragon that often appeared in the last era. However, after the end of the era, the Mirage Dragon had gone extinct, so you did not expect to see one here. Mirage Dragon? What is that? The Star Maiden asked curiously. Suyu stared at the Mirage Dragon and said in surprise, "The Mirage Dragon is a peculiar creature that can set up illusions. Its illusions are extremely lifelike. Even the most powerful Pathmaster might not be able to see through it. The Pathmaster could control the realm, so he was very sensitive to the outside world. However, even they could not see through it, which showed how powerful the illusions were. Thinking back to what they had seen just now, it should be the illusions of the Mirage Dragon. The Star Maiden was excited. This creature had more potential than the heaven-severing lion. Getting a Mirage Dragon was far better than getting 10 heaven-severing lions. As if he had seen through her mind, Suyu said, "The Mirage Dragon has 2 forms. This is the first form. Even so, if someone is not recognized by it, it will activate the illusions if he is within 5 feet of it. If it is enraged, it will transform into the second form and grow 9 dragon heads. Each dragon head has the powerful combat power of a family master." Hearing this, the Star Maiden's heart skipped a beat. 9 heads of the family masters. This, even if the 7 family masters of the 7 unique civilizations joined hands, they would not be a match for this Mirage Dragon. It was better for her not to have any unrealistic ideas. At this time, the heaven-severing lion roared at the Mirage Dragon, and the Mirage Dragon slowly climbed up. At this time, people found out that there was a dark entrance on the first floor of the ancient tower, which was blocked by the Mirage Dragon's tail. The heaven-severing lion raised its claws and pointed at the entrance. So you couldn't believe it. Did the Mirage Dragon lie on the ancient tower as a guardian beast? However, the Mirage Dragon was a powerful creature. What did it need to protect? The Star Maiden and Xuan Mengfiu realized that something was wrong, and their breathing became rapid. It seemed that the heaven-severing lion wanted to give them a gift. The heaven-severing lion led the way and went into the cave quickly. Suyu and the other 2 followed closely. The ancient tower was broken on the outside, but there were still some immortal formations inside, which made the inside of the ancient tower brightly lit. Under the light, they could see that there was a well-preserved palace in the ancient tower. On the horizontal board of the palace, 4 big words were written in bold and vigorous strokes. Tianyi Side Palace. The 4 words were filled with a dizzying power. Just a glance at them made people's hearts palpitate. Suyu shook his head and looked away. He said in a low voice, "Don't look at it. It's the word demon." The word demon was the word of the 9th-rated race, the Heavenly Demon Clan. They were good at mental attacks. Their words, actions, and even the words they left behind were full of demonic nature. Those whose souls weren't strong enough could be trapped by it if they weren't careful. They lowered their heads and entered the Tianyi Side Palace. As soon as they entered, they felt a great pressure. Broken but powerful seals were everywhere, but they were still functioning. Even a powerhouse at the level of a patriarch could be crushed into dust on the spot with just a slight touch. The Star Maiden and Xuan Mengfiu gasped. "What is this place? Look, this is a million-year-old demonic grievance flower. It's at least 1/10 of the wealth of the family. The immortal lotus. Only the immortal lotus of an 8-star civilization is left. The 9 suns' golden radiant grass. My goodness, a legendary spiritual herb that can bring the dead back to life with just 1 leaf." They passed by a garden, and the things growing in the garden were astonishing. Every single one of them was a top-grade treasure that could cause the 7 Jew families to fight over it. However, in this place they were growing in patches. The 2 women couldn't suppress their intense greed and were about to pounce forward to harvest them. However, they were stopped by Suyu. He pointed at the roots of each plant. Only then did they realize that the soil of the entire garden was filled with terrifying seals. They were afraid that if they moved, they would be killed by the seals immediately. Not only that, but under Su Yu's guidance, they realized that the entire palace, including the bluestone slabs on the ground, were filled with seals. Any damage to them would result in the destruction of the seals. The two women immediately became cautious. Under the guidance of the celestial lion, they came to a bedroom in the backyard. Chapter 22:36. On the left side, there was nothing except some broken stones on the ground. He didn't even need to think to know that the sky-severing lion used to stand there. However, it was lucky enough to receive the long-term illumination of the power of heaven and earth, which gave birth to spiritual intelligence. The heavenly lion came to the door of the bedroom with a complicated look and pointed inside. Su Yu said, "Do you want us to go in?" The heavenly lion nodded, pointed at itself, and then pointed at the place where it used to stand. It meant that it could only become a heavenly lion after getting some benefits from it. Su Yu thought for a while and couldn't help but be tempted. The stone lion needed to receive the long-term baptism of the power of heaven and earth to develop spiritual intelligence. What Su Yu wanted to find now was the power of heaven and earth. All of you step back. To be safe, Su Yu asked everyone to step back, and he also stepped back quite a distance. After applying the power of space in front of him, he flicked his finger to open the door of the bedroom. Creak! With an obscure sound, the door of the bedroom opened, and a light, fragrant wind blew in. It didn't seem dangerous, but Su Yu and the others felt their hair stand on end. Su Yu immediately used the space to transfer them out of this place. Just as they were about to leave, the space behind them collapsed without warning, like a candle suddenly being destroyed by a strong wind. If the space was like this, how could their bodies be affected? If they were hit by that fragrant wind, they would probably die immediately. Su Yu's pupils constricted. The fragrant wind wasn't very aggressive, so it should be the smell that had accumulated in the house. However, the more Su Yu thought about it, the more frightened he was. It wasn't a deliberate attack, but it was still so terrifying. What was in the house? Who was the one who left this palace behind? The great Emperor of Tianyi? After a long time, they carefully returned to the bedroom. Looking inside, he saw that everything in the magnificent room was still intact. In the deepest part, amidst the layers of red silk, a bed came into view. On the bed, the figure of a woman lying on her side could be vaguely seen. A light fragrance wafted out of the house. Xuanmeng Fiyu covered her mouth, her heart thumping wildly. She was obviously scared. Even the Star Lady was scared. She almost thought it was a living person. So you also found it unbelievable. The woman should have been dead for half an era. However, her body was preserved so well. Even a Tao Lord wouldn't be able to accomplish that, right? In a few 100 million years at most, their remains would disappear from the world. The fragrance that assaulted him just now should have come from this woman. The fragrance that lingered on a woman who died for half an era was still terrifying to the point of being able to kill a Tao Lord who was at the level of a patriarch. So, how strong would her true body be? Filled with bewilderment, Su Yu quietly walked to the window and lifted the curtains. What entered his eyes was an extremely beautiful woman with tightly closed eyes and a tranquil expression. Even Su Yu's heart couldn't help but palpitate when he saw her face. As one of the 7 absolute civilizations' peerless twin paragons, even Snow Dream Flying Rain felt ashamed when she saw that face. To think that there would actually be such a beautiful person in this world. Xuanmeng Feiyu murmured. Star Maiden looked at her body curiously and found that she was covered in treasures. The earrings were a pair of Tao artifacts, while the hairpin was a Tao artifact. The gorgeous dress she was wearing was also a Tao artifact. Even the shoes on his feet were Tao artifacts. Who on earth is she? Star Maiden was so surprised that she couldn't close her mouth. What kind of person was this woman who was covered in Tao artifacts when she was alive? When her eyes drifted to the waist of the woman's corpse, she was attracted by a token on it. The identity token was also a Tao artifact, for words were engraved on it. Agile Imperial Concubine. Star Maiden exclaimed. So he was also secretly surprised. Wasn't Agile Imperial Concubine the Tianyi Great Emperor's most beloved imperial concubine? It was said that Agile Imperial Concubine was extremely beautiful and had once been the civilization master of seven-star civilization. Later, when the Tiani Great Emperor attacked her civilization, agile imperial concubine knew that she was no match for him, so she surrendered and admitted defeat. In the end, the Tiani Great Emperor took her as his concubine. The Tiani Great Emperor had countless concubines, but she was the one he doted on the most. She also had a special liking for the Tiani Great Emperor, and she would never change until her death. In the end, the Tiani Great Emperor disappeared without a trace. An agile imperial concubine also disappeared without a trace. Many people guessed that she had met the same fate as the Tiani Great Emperor. But unexpectedly, agile imperial concubine died in the Silver Soul Void Ocean. To be exact, she did not die an unnatural death, but she had hypnotized herself into an eternal slumber and died naturally. Shuimeng Feiyu looked excited and said, "Let's see what we can take away first." Meeting agile imperial concubine was their good fortune. If they did not take a few things with them, how could they live up to their fate? However, she was the only one who was eager to try. Su Yu and Star Maiden did not move at all. "Don't you want it?" Shuimeng Feiyu asked. Star Maiden said calmly, "Isn't it good to let the beloved concubine of the great emperor rest in peace here?" Shuimeng Feiyu was embarrassed and looked embarrassed. The Tiani Great Emperor was still respected by the creatures of the 7 unique civilizations. They did not miss the 7 unique civilizations in the era of the Tiani Great Emperor all the time. How powerful were they then? Because of their love for the house, the Star Maiden respected his concubine. Suyu was not a member of the 7 unique civilizations, so he did not have much respect for the Tiani Great Emperor. However, he didn't dare to touch the corpse that had almost killed them all just by the fragrance it emitted. He was afraid that if he touched it, he would be turned into ashes. At that moment, the celestial lion, who had been pacing at the door for a long time, finally walked in fear. It lay in front of the bed and whimpered a few times. Then it raised its paw and pointed at itself, then at them, indicating that it wanted them to learn from it. Suyu and Star Maiden thought for a moment, then knelt down and bowed to it as a sign of respect for a king. However, when Suyu bowed to the ground, an incredible scene appeared. 3 books appeared on the ground. The Universal C Suppression Technique, the 4 Symbols Questioning Heart Mantra, the Agile Manual. When they saw the first 2 books, Star Maiden and Shuimeng Feiyu shouted in horror. The Universal C Suppression Technique cultivated by the Tiani Great Emperor, and his main cultivation technique, the 4 Symbols Questioning Heart Mantra. It turned out that the first 2 books were the cultivation techniques cultivated by the Tiani Great Emperor. No wonder the 2 women were so excited. Shuimeng Feiyu was the fastest. She squatted down and grabbed the 4 Symbols Questioning Heart Mantra. This was the main cultivation technique cultivated by the Tiani Great Emperor, so one could imagine how powerful it was. However, she didn't kneel down just now, so she wasn't as close as Star Maiden. Star Maiden reached out her hand and easily took the 4 Symbols Questioning Heart Mantra. However, when Star Maiden wanted to take something else, she found that the other 2 books were transparent to her. When she grabbed them, it was as if she was grabbing thin air. Only the Universal C Suppression Technique was left. She snatched it and picked it up. Finally, Suyu picked up the Agile Manual unhurriedly. Although the Tiani Great Emperor's cultivation techniques were tempting, Suyu was confident that the Evil Dragon Bible and the Heaven Sun Gazing at Air technique were powerful cultivation techniques that weren't any weaker than theirs. Suyu had already exhausted his energy in cultivating the 2 techniques, so he didn't have the time to spend on cultivating other people's cultivation techniques from the beginning. Therefore, compared to the cultivation techniques, he was more inclined towards the Agile Imperial Concubine's Manual. Otherwise, if he really wanted to snatch the cultivation techniques, the 2 women wouldn't be able to do so. Leaving the 2 women to browse through the cultivation techniques on the spot, Suyu casually flipped open the manual. What entered his eyes was a beautiful handwriting, but the content made Suyu's heart race. The manual recorded the methods to cast and dispel the 108 high-level seals, as well as the techniques to communicate with the horrifying slug outside, and even a method to control the silver soulworm. In other words, mastering the manual was equivalent to mastering the entire Silver Soul Void Sea. Its value was probably countless times higher than the two cultivation techniques. He suppressed the joy in his heart and continued reading. When he reached the end, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. The last page of the manual mentioned the Tiani Cavern. Moreover, there was a detailed description of the dangers that existed in the Tiani Cavern and how to avoid them. It was described in great detail. If that was the case, so you probably wouldn't be too interested, because ordinary treasures would no longer be able to tempt Suyu. However, the manual said that in the Tiani Cavern, there was a place called the Love-Severing Platform. This was what caused Suyu's pupils to shrink. The Love-Severing Platform was the place where the evil emperor hid one of the 4 pieces of the emperor's set, the divine throne of heaven and earth. No wonder Suyu couldn't find any information about the Love-Severing Platform, even after searching through all kinds of information. It turned out that it was the name of a place in the Tiani Cavern. He clenched the manual tightly, his heart excited. He had to go to the Tiani Cavern. Keeping the manual, Suyu bowed to the body of the Pinshin concubine again. "Thank you, Pinshin concubine, for your gift. I will remember it." He had just bowed when Suyu suddenly felt a ring of light beneath his feet. An extremely pure and terrifying energy coursed through his body like lightning. He couldn't be more familiar with that energy. It was the power of heaven and earth. It was far more powerful than the power of heaven and earth in the Broken Heaven Mountain. The difference was that the power of heaven and earth in front of him had been tamed and could be controlled to refine his physique. Moreover, this energy was just enough for Suyu to push the heavenly dragon body to the next level. While he was pleasantly surprised, he couldn't help but feel a little confused. Was the Pinshin concubine really dead? The cultivation techniques, the manual, and the power of heaven and earth didn't seem to have been arranged in advance. Instead, they were arranged according to the number of people they had and their cultivation levels. As he was thinking, the door to the bedroom began to close without any wind. Suyu's eyes were sharp, and he immediately said, "Get out quickly." The Star Lady and Xuemeng Fiyu immediately followed Suyu and left as soon as the door closed. Only the Tinjua Lion was stunned for a moment. He didn't follow them out in time and stayed in the room. So he tried to open the bedroom door again. However, unlike the last time, there was a layer of restriction on the door this time, and it couldn't be opened at all. Inside the room, the Tinjua Lion came to its senses. It looked at the corpse in front of it, then looked at the pitch-black room where it was alone. It whimpered in fear, shrank in the corner, shivering, and looked at the corpse without blinking. In his eyes, an incomparably beautiful corpse was slowly sitting up on the bed.